Hey now, we are getting over, and I am the Silver King, Adam Silverstein, here to lead you through these hard times. With episode 848 of your favorite professional wrestling podcast. That's right, Getting Over is back once again, and it is Thursday, so you know exactly what that means. We are here to talk all things NXT and AEW, but not only that, this is a special edition of the Getting Over Wrestling podcast. We are bringing in vintage Chris Vanini for a full review of Season 2 of WWE Unreal. So he will be along for the ride momentarily, kicking off the show. Then we'll talk NXT and AEW on the back end of this episode. For the first time in a long time, I want to say at least 3 months, if not 4, we will also have a ratings conversation talking NXT, AEW, and TNA because we never actually went over their ratings for the first 2 episodes on AMC. There will be no TNA coverage on this episode, as I have mentioned previously, because that show airs on Thursday night. It doesn't make sense for us to delay NXT coverage, for example, from Tuesday all the way to Friday, just so we can cover TNA. So we will discuss TNA, a month at a time, probably a week delayed. Maybe we'll talk about it immediately preceding their pay-per-views. That probably makes the most sense. I still have not watched the last special event they had. I want to say 2 Saturdays ago. Need to watch it. I heard it was actually a great show. So there's a lot of TNA to catch up on over periods of time. There's also not as much integration with NXT anymore. I'm not saying it's not happening. It is, but it's minimal. So there's not as much of a need to, constantly ensure that we're covering them on the show. And certainly we're not going to be talking TNA on the WWE episode on Tuesday, which is long enough as it is. So as I said, we're talking WWE Unreal, NXT, AEW, and some ratings on this episode. Our next show will be Saturday, your 2026 WWE Royal Rumble Instant Analysis, which means already waiting for you in the podcast feed is our 2026 WWE Royal Rumble Ultimate Preview, one of our deepest and most detailed shows that we have done outside of a major news topic in maybe the history of this podcast. We went deep not only on AJ Styles' retirement, our expectations for the Royal Rumble show, of course, the signature matches on that program, and our early thoughts about WrestleMania 42. Make sure you listen to the 2026 WWE Royal Rumble Ultimate Preview before you get to the show this Saturday. As we get into this program, allow the Silver King to remind you that Getting Over
is all about the five.
So head over to Apple Podcasts and Spotify, leave a 5-star rating on Apple, take a little extra time, leave a 5-star written review. If you do, we will read it live right here on the show. Also, don't forget to follow us on social media at Getting Overcast. When you link with us on Twitter and Blue Sky, you get episode drops, news, analysis, highlights. You can send in questions and comments for the show, and you get to vote in pre- and post-show polls around premium live events like the Royal Rumble. On YouTube, when you subscribe over there, you can listen to the show, and you can watch full-length video interviews as well. No matter where you want to find us, you can do it at Getting Overcast. Now, as I said, we have a lot to cover: WWE, NXT, AEW.
But I'm afraid I've got some news.
And there are a couple quick items I did want to hit here off the top of the show. WWE is doing its full media blitz ahead of the Royal Rumble, so there's a lot of stuff coming out here and there in drips and drabs, and maybe we'll recap a lot of it next week. But there were 3 items from Wednesday that are worth discussing here, just considering they have to do with the Royal Rumble this Saturday. First, Brock Lesnar declared for the Men's Royal Rumble on Pat McAfee show. Whatever. That's now 15 or 16, though, so the over has officially hit for both matches. That's disappointing, but again, as long as it hovers around 50%, it's palatable. Second, Seth Rollins stated emphatically on ESPN that he will not be in the Royal Rumble. Doctors did not clear him. He is not ready. So, of course, we speculated about that on the Ultimate Preview. What if he was available? What could potentially happen? Him winning the match would have made all the sense in the world. Alas, he is not cleared, and it is worth taking him at his word for it. Third, Paul Levesque was on Get Up on ESPN, where he confirmed that both Elimination Chamber matches will again be for number 1 contenderships for the men's and women's main event titles.
Market zero.
It is just awful, lazy creative. I have said this so many times before, and I will for the next month, so I won't waste too much time here. but having all 4 of your world title matches for WrestleMania be determined through number 1 contenderships, 2 on as many consecutive shows, never choosing to use storytelling to build major feuds that require those title matches, it is such an effing cop-out creatively. Why not put one of the titles on the line in Elimination Chamber? Even if it's a mid-card or a tag team title. Why not let the number 1 contendership be for a different title? Like something in the tag team division or the Intercontinental Championship. There are so many ways to make the chamber more interesting. But instead, 2 shows in a row at the start of your year, you have 2 long number 1 contendership matches, one for the men, one for the women, and then again the next month, one for the men and one for the women. It's the same thing over and over. It's like missionary position every single night.
It's the same thing over and over and over. It's like missionary position every single night. In the tribal chief, the head of the table, we're not interested in that. No,
we're not interested in that because it is the same thing every single year. Elimination Chamber, as trite as the concept may be in general, and like its existence perhaps doesn't need to continue, but okay, it is a unique match concept and WWE generally does it well. Freshen it up a little bit, shake it up, give us some, unique storylines. That one year they did a tag team elimination chamber. It was cool as shit. When the championship's on the line, I want to say, you guys know my memory isn't amazing. I usually need to prepare. But didn't Bray Wyatt win the WWE Championship in Elimination Chamber? And that preceded the Randy Orton match at WrestleMania? So do that. I mean, I'm not saying that you should change the title, but this show is in Chicago. You're telling me you couldn't do a World Heavyweight Championship Elimination Chamber that CM Punk wins and the crowd wouldn't love it? And then you can create a number 1 contender on the back end from that? Of course you could. So the lack of creativity, the lack of freshness, I know this is kind of repetitive to what I'm saying. The chambers become stale. And the concept of all 4 number 1 contenders for WrestleMania needing to be decided in matches like this is stale. It's a crutch. Book better, be more creative, and make matches happen on that main show. Even last year, right? We had that awesome triple threat with the women. It still required one of them winning a number 1 contendership. And the other just got kind of screwed along the way, so she got her opportunity. What happened to the triple threats and the 4-ways that developed naturally through storyline? Why can we not get back to that? It should not be that difficult. And look, just because it's lazy and trite, it doesn't mean it's going to be bad. It's possible all 4 of these matches, men's rumble, women's rumble, men's chamber, women's chamber, it's possible WWE knocks all 4 of them out of the park. The perfect winners, the perfect booking, A+ matches, but it's still disappointing that they can't move past this. All right, away from that to another topic. Folks were making a big deal Thursday morning that AJ Styles filed trademarks for his name, moniker, and logo, as if that suggests he's going to continue wrestling elsewhere. I think everyone probably forgets, number 1, it was a news story when he joined WWE that he licensed his trademarks to the company for the duration of his contract. That now seems to be ending. 2, this is commonplace for legends to do as they need their marks for third-party appearances, signings, etc. 3, as we've said many times, this has been billed as a retirement outside of one singular remark from Monday that may not have been purposeful. They may have just said WWE instead of wrestling. This, as far as I'm concerned, is much ado about nothing. Just figured I would tell you that. And lastly, the non-WWE item here, TNA has re-signed Ash by Elegance, the former Dana Brooke. Now, normally I wouldn't even mention this, but she vacated her TNA Knockouts Championship last year due to some type of health scare. You got to believe it was. But she's been back on TV, so re-signing with the company should indicate that she's okay, which is great news for her individually. She was doing better with this gimmick. The whole Elegance brand thing to me is completely grating. It's a turn off the channel type of deal, but it's working for them and it's working for her. So fingers crossed that what I'm saying is true. I'm glad she's healthy. I hope that's accurate. But if she's getting re-signed by TNA, that should be indicating as much. So congratulations to her and them that this relationship is going to be able to continue forward. And you know what? TNA's Knockouts division has been ravaged by, I don't want to say the word, it's not politics, but issues within the company, personal mistakes made by a lot of these talents, and also people departing TNA. So is Dana Brooke, is Ash by Elegance like a top tier wrestler? No, she's not. but they need bodies. So getting Ash by Elegance back for TNA, good for you. Before we get Vintage Chris Vanini into the show, I do need to remind you here at Getting Over,
I happen to love the number 5.
and I hope you do as well. $5 a month, $50 for the entire year. You can become an official Getting Overhead. Just visit buymeacoffee.com/gettingover. Sign up. You'll get bonus audio, the fastest 5 minutes in professional wrestling, instant reactions to every major show, and exclusive news analysis posts every week. It's a small price to pay to support us. We are a free show. We only have one sponsor. We don't fill this episode with ads, and you get extra content too. We'd greatly appreciate the support, especially moving into WrestleMania season, which all of you know is when Getting Over kicks major ass. Again, buymeacoffee.com/gettingover. I will also remind you, we now have a Slack channel for all of our Getting Overheads, and you can join that for free. It is not tied to the subscription. On Twitter and Blue Sky at Getting Overcast. The link in our bio includes a link to the Slack. It also includes a link to the Buy Me a Coffee. But you click that invite link, you join up, and you converse about WWE, AEW, wrestling, and other off-topic things with the other Getting Overheads, the Silver King, and Vintage Chris Vanini. Speaking of vintage, let me welcome in Chris Vanini so we can discuss WWE Unreal Season 2, our full, unvarnished review of what has become a pretty controversial show that WWE is putting on semi-annually. It seems it's going to be. Vintage, when did you get around to finishing watching? And how are you doing coming into this weekend with the Royal Rumble just, about 48 hours away?
Yeah. So, by the way, 2 episodes this week for me. Gonna be 3 with the Royal Rumble.
Holy
recap.
shit.
I'm fully back.
Hit the horn, somebody, because oh my God.
That's cool.
Oh my Lord. So
the show came out the day of the national championship, right? That Monday?
It might have been the Tuesday after Raw.
Yeah. So I was busy. It took me, I watched 2 episodes on my flight home from Miami. Then I think I watched the next 1.5 in the next day or so. And then I finished it Monday. Mm-hmm. That's different than the first season when I watched the entire thing straight through on my flight to Italy. So,
well, we also got it ahead of time, like 12 hours before it debuted, and we decided to like bang it out and then do a special episode. I will, be completely candid here. I always am on the show. I reached out to Netflix. I'm like, hey, can we get an embargoed copy so we can, watch it and do a whole release as soon as it gets deployed? And they didn't give it to us. Netflix has usually been pretty good to us over this WWE relationship. So that was a little disappointing, but hopefully we'll get some early copies in the future, I guess is the best way to put it. Before we get into the whole WWE Unreal discussion, there's been something I've seen online the last 2 days, really since I guess we taped our last episode, that I wanted to get your opinion on. There's been talk, and it just feels like everything these days, the tide has turned in the internet wrestling community toward, there's a period where WWE, maybe that they couldn't do no wrong, but they were surging and everything's great. And AEW was really struggling and they had to criticize AEW at every turn. And now it seems like anything WWE does is bad and AEW is doing everything right. So the topic I've seen discussed online is that the build to this Royal Rumble is poor. Or they're not, more specifically, not that it's poor. They're not doing it. They're not building to the Royal Rumble. That's the thing. They are not building to the Royal Rumble matches. And I'm sitting here and I was thinking about it. I was like, that's kind of true, I thought. And then I started thinking, what build do they do for the Royal Rumble outside of occasionally having 2 or 3 people who are in the match go into the ring and promo each other? The difference between this Royal Rumble and prior Royal Rumbles is WWE doesn't need to sell tickets. So they're not trying to get butts in seats. What they are trying to do is get eyes on screens. And as the last 2 weeks have transpired, because let's not forget, they had John Cena's last match, which took up a lot of air until mid-December, and they really didn't start building the Royal Rumble until after their debut week of shows. They had the Raw on Netflix, obviously, the title change they did on SmackDown with Drew McIntyre and Cody Rhodes. Over the ensuing 3 weeks, people have been declaring for the Royal Rumble. They're talking about the matches and why they want to win the title. They've been saying shit to the champions backstage and in the ring. To me, it comes across as a little bit lighter than other Royal Rumble builds, but certainly not to the standpoint that they're not building to the show. So I don't understand where that's coming from, but I wanted to get your take on it to see if I was crazy.
I mean, in terms of the show, we spent the last couple weeks building up to the Sammy versus Drew match, so that's there. The Rumbles themselves, it's hard to build up to And they don't even do the thing they used to do, which was on the go home, you'd have a ton of people in the ring.
That's what I'm
and then
saying.
Everybody gets cleared out. Like, they didn't really
That's
do that
the
anymore,
only
which is
thing
fine.
that I think is missing. That standard trite, thing that they used to do every single time.
Yeah, but like, I'm okay with that because, like we said going in, we have no idea who's going to win this Rumble, and that's exciting. Like, is it a better build if we can narrow it down to like one of three guys who are or girls who are definitely going to win?
I don't think so. I like it not knowing.
Yeah, it's the Rumble. It sells itself. I don't need a build to that match.
By the way, as we're talking and I'm just like looking at Twitter simultaneously, the number 2 trend, I just refreshed the page, in the United States is Hugh Morris. And Hugh Morris, of course, the old WCW wrestler, kind of like a jester-ish gimmick, Hugh Morris, one of my favorite names in wrestling history. So I got like a pit in my stomach. I'm like, oh my God, something happened to Hugh Morris. So I clicked on the link, and it's apparently some animated character from some show I've never seen before. I don't know. I don't know what I'm looking at. It's a guy in a jester hat, Tomodachi Life, some game. It looks, I don't know what it is. I don't know what I'm doing.
Never heard of this.
But I saw Hugh Morris and I thought, oh my God, there's something wrestling happening live as we're here. And of course, that's not the case.
I thought someone else was going to accuse him of bullying in NXT or something like that. So better than that too.
That would not have been great either. All right, enough wasting time. Let's talk WWE Unreal. I do want to go episode by episode, but there are 2 overall topics I wanted to discuss before we get into that. When it comes to this show, as we said ahead of season 1, my only real issue with it is, I guess I just wish it didn't exist. And it's not because it exposes the business per se, but rather that it does so unnecessarily. The best parts of Unreal in season 1 and again in season 2 had absolutely nothing to do with the creative process. It's seeing the behind the scenes of WWE superstars, their lives, their relationships, their interpersonal actions with one another. Now, if some of that includes conversation about creative and booking, okay, that's part of their lives. We should be knowing that they're upset that they're not going to win a match, or they are excited about it but disagree with the finish. That's okay. That's fine. But the side conversations with Paul Levesque and Cody Rhodes, or CM Punk, or Becky Lynch, those were so freaking interesting. But every time we get taken into the writer's room, it feels forced and unnecessary. And if I was WWE and Netflix, I would seriously consider transitioning this series to make it a documentary on the superstars, their trials and tribulations, and not some peek behind the curtain on creative and that process, which is what it seems like they are trying to do. That got scaled back in season 2 compared to season 1. It was also naturally less of a topic, Chris, because even though, yes, like the Seth Rollins, fake knee injury was a big storyline and so on, the prior season was about WrestleMania, The Rock's involvement, how much changed, all the machinations behind it. But again, they scaled back in season 2 compared to season 1, and this show was better because of it. If you nearly get rid of that part of it in season 3, suddenly you have something awesome on your hands. And people may say, well, I wish they didn't peel the curtain back and tell us about the decision-making here and there, but they wouldn't be complaining to the same level. And almost all of the complaints have to do with the writer room scenes and things that are related to it.
Yeah, like we'll get into all the specifics, but the best part of the season is like Becky talking about her daughter, Jelly Roll losing weight. Like these are things you connect with as someone. You don't have to know about pro wrestling to connect with someone on that level. I always just wonder, like, who are the like wrestling specific things for? Like this season didn't have, here's what gorilla position is and here's how it works. Like I literally don't know if a normal person who doesn't watch wrestling would want to know that. Maybe they do. I don't know. Like I don't know what feedback Netflix gets on that. But maybe it's because we're coming from this as people who already know this stuff and know wrestling. But it's when you get to know the wrestlers. That's why the stuff that we love about, Beyond the Mat and those old documentaries are like, oh, we're seeing these wrestlers as real people going through real things in their lives.
Yep.
And yes, it's interesting, when Bret Hart punches Vince McMahon or whatever. But I always just like the writing room stuff. I'm also at the point where in the back of my mind, I wonder, is this just being staged? Is it being staged for the show? The other part, I think the writing conversation stuff makes them look stupid.
It does, yeah.
Like Road Dogg came off looking terrible in this season.
But well, let me address that, because the way people are reacting to being a fly on the wall for conversations in this creative writing room, it tells me that they've never done anything like that before, and I know you have.
Yes.
You are not being shown the origination of these pitches. You are not being shown the full conversations around these topics. You're getting snippets. And because you're only getting snippets, to the point that you just made, these people are looking bad. So, for example, when they're talking about Gunther and Pat McAfee, and Paul Levesque brings up McAfee winning that match, as asinine as that sounds, that does not mean it was the planned booking before that other guy, Jonathan Backstrom, spoke up to correctly say that it would be illogical if Gunther lost. The director is showing us as viewers how this creative team not only brainstorms options, but plays out how the storylines would unravel from those decisions. I have no expectation that all fans understand the creative writing and storytelling process. But man, there should be a level of media literacy to pick up on the fact that the pitches you are seeing and hearing are portions of active conversations between employees in a workplace. Stories you and I write and edit for our full-time jobs go through so many different phases and incarnations before the final product is actually seen. And sometimes the final product isn't good. Many times it is. But the effort and the thought process is always there. This is the same concept, except they're giving you an inside look at it and picking out 30-second to 90-second segments of that conversation, which might be a 2 to 3 week conversation going back and forth with different opinions and things that they're doing, or at least a full day or an hour, potentially.
And that's what all reality shows are. Like my cousin lived in Laguna Beach when that show was going on.
Right.
And he remembers being at a campfire on the beach where some of the people were there and they were filming it. And it was like, the whole thing doesn't get in. And to speak to our profession, I will do long interviews with people, but I'm only choosing part of it to put in the story.
Of course.
And you have to have that trust with the person you're interviewing, that they know you're not going to make them look bad or this or that. Or
imagine if they took the first 4 minutes of your conversation with someone where you're, hey, nice to get to know you. What'd you think about this and whatever? And you're not getting great answers. Wow, Chris is a really shitty interviewer. No, you're seeing the best quotes from a 20-minute conversation that you've parsed out and put together as part of your storytelling process.
So and that's what I mean by, like, I feel like they're setting the writing team up to look dumb in the eyes of the viewers who know what's going on. If
Road Dogg, to your point, he looked like an absolute moron on this show.
Yes. And we've complained about his booking of SmackDown, but we don't think he's a moron,
Except for one thing that they talked about on the show, and it mirrored reality perfectly, which I will get to later. One particular topic.
So, I'm like you, where I go back and forth, where it's like the journalist in me loves to know all this stuff because but the fan in me doesn't want to know some of this. Like, right. I don't want to know how a magician does his trick.
I'm okay. I'm okay if the creative process, I said this a minute ago, if it comes up within other conversations. So
like Chelsea Green learns she has to lose the title.
Yes, right. Yeah. And she's like, oh, okay, well, I guess I'm not champion anymore. And she gets sarcastic about it and whatever. Or when you're preparing for the Seth Rollins cash-in with Money in the Bank, and you see Cody preparing for the match, and Paul Levesque walks up to him, hey, Cody, I just wanted to let you know what's going to happen. You deserve to know you're our quarterback.
That was really cool.
That was awesome.
That actually might be my favorite part of the season.
Yeah, it was incredible. And he did the same thing with CM Punk. Hey, Punk, I want to tell you what's going to happen tonight. And you saw Punk didn't even blink. He goes, that's amazing. I love that. Like, I'm so excited to do this.
Yeah, the number of times they would not tell people what's going on, that was really captivating.
Yeah.
And and we'll get into Seth stuff, but he's like, the medical team has to know. You can't lie to the medical team. I was like, that's a good point. But like, we're not going to tell Cole or this or that. Like that's a great insight into creative process.
Yes.
Without making the writers look,
the show should be about the show, not what's behind the show. And the wrestlers are the show. The writers are not. Stop including people. I don't need to know what, Jonathan Backstrom, whose name I didn't even know. Or I mean, I heard it before, but I'd never seen him before. This episode, I don't need to know what he thinks or how he disagreed with Road Dogg about a minor story point that didn't even come to fruition, let's say, right? Like, focus on the wrestlers and the creative process in and around them. And if you want Paul Levesque or Ed Koskey or any of these other pieces to be part of the show, that's okay. Then have it in situations where the wrestlers are involved, where it's being communicated. Hey, this is the plan for the match. And Becky Lynch is like, well, hold on a second. I don't love that. Can we talk about a way to improve this? That's the part that I want to see as a viewer and as a fan. I don't want to see 7 dudes and 3 women in a room going over, well, what if Pat McAfee beats Gunther? And then, well, no, that doesn't make any sense. No shit, it doesn't make any sense, right? And you're also opening yourself up for greater criticism by showing us that. And they were way too heavy on that in season 1, much better in season 2. Again, I would eliminate it in season 3. Okay, let's go episode by episode. There's only 5. I do have numerous notes, Chris. I guess maybe I'll go through my notes on the show and then you can add anything that you kind of want to say or just interrupt me if there's a specific topic that you want to talk about. But episode 1, No Days Off. Seth Rollins and Becky Lynch, by the way, they're the main characters of the entire season, but it's not too much on them, which is kind of cool. Hearing Lyra Valkyria talk about Becky with such reverence and then seeing footage of them from 2018 in Ireland, that was awesome. You could see how much them working together meant to Lyra and how it's clearly just the first set of interactions ahead of plenty in the future. Plus Becky calling Lyra the future multiple times. It just shows how much support Valkyria has in the locker room, starting with its biggest star. Bayley was crazy supportive of her. That's really cool. Beck said this is her final run and final contract. She's now basically a year into that. So the question is whether she has 2 or 4 years left. At 38, it's going to be real curious to see what she does. I assume she will never be too far from WWE, kind of like a modern Trish Stratus. Back every couple of years, short program, pop rating, but definitely not full-time. I saw people take issue with Levesque saying Pat McAfee is the face of WWE for some people. Given how much McAfee promotes it on what used to be a sports-only show, his show, for better or worse, that's true. He is the face of WWE for a lot of people. It's interesting that Michael Cole pointed out one of the reasons he and McAfee yeeted together for months on end was to set up the Gunther story. I never put 2 and 2 together. It's also possible he's fibbing about that, but I found that interesting if true. I maintain McAfee going 14 minutes with Gunther was ridiculous. The concept of the match was fine. It should have been 8 or 9 minutes. And lastly, seeing TJ Wilson and Jason Jordan working together on the Becky Lyra match, super cool. And Levesque was right that Lynch rushed the post-match attack. That again is something that interested me. Him being critical to her accepting it. That's the behind the scenes I want to see. I don't want to see them deciding who's going to win the match 2 months earlier in a writing room.
I thought the most interesting part of this episode was Becky just talking about being a mom and being away from her daughter, and how much that weighed on her. Like, you'll see, women athletes talk about that all the time, but they didn't see it. And to see Becky's daughter sometimes upset when she had to explain she had to go, or Becky when she's holding the belt and her daughter gets to hold the belt, that was really cool. I think sometimes we're like, oh, she had a kid. The kid is out of sight, out of mind to us fans. And
the kid,
I'd forgot.
Rue. Her name is Rue. A. B. It's a great name for a child.
Yes.
Sorry, continue.
It's terrific. And I'd kind of forgotten about that part because it's been so long about Becky making a comeback. I'd forgotten she was gone as long as she was. That's how smoothly she just fit when she came back in. She is, like we've said, maybe the best to ever do it. And seeing that insight into her personal life and handling all that made it all the more deep.
When you talk about consistency through the 5 episodes, my favorite thing was Becky and Rue. And it's not just in this episode where it's a little bit deeper on them. I have a note later. I'll explain exactly what I mean. But yeah, seeing her hold the title and saying it's my title. And Becky's like, no, Rue, it's my title. Really, really cute. Episode 2 was The Truth, which you could argue we didn't get much of in the episode. I loved that we got nearly an entire R-Truth episode, despite the circumstances. Wasn't a whole career retrospective. They skipped over a lot, but it was still cool. Seeing their confusion over how to book the first match with John Cena was so frustrating because you and I literally laid out on the show the way to book it. And to see, again, the creative team just not come up with something good and then just say, let's just do this and this and have him dress like him. I mean, it was immensely frustrating. The story as it was told on Unreal is that R-Truth said he got a call that he was released on June 1st and wrote as much on social media. Levesque countered this, saying his deal was expiring. They were far apart in contract negotiations. Communication broke down, and they were waiting for Truth to come back to them, basically to say, okay, I want to stay, and I'm willing to accept a number that's closer to what you're offering than what I want. Now, I saw people out there who automatically chose not to believe this. I can tell you that's what happened. His contract was going to expire. He was told WWE was not going to meet his number, and he took that phone call, hey, Truth, they're not going to meet your number, to mean that they don't want me back, and that's it. They wanted him to lower his demands. The talent spoke out. They showed that on social media. I thought it would have been awesome to see them behind the scenes, Rhea Ripley going up to someone. Is this true? How is this possible? To call the show Unreal and not show the talent react live in person during the shows to this happening was unreal. Like it was not real.
Well,
and that annoyed the shit out of me.
They may not have that. I mean, it was announced like in the middle of the day.
Yeah, but there was a whole Raw where this happened, where they chanted for him. There was a whole SmackDown, and then he returned the next Saturday at Saturday Night's Main Event.
Sure, I'm just saying when you said the live reaction to them getting.
No, I mean like Rhea commiserating with Damian Priest backstage. Yo, how are they doing this to Truth? Like this doesn't make any sense. What are we going to do? We should talk to Paul. Some of that had to happen backstage. That's the shit I wanted to see, is what I'm trying to explain. But and then after all of that, the talent spoke out, the fans spoke out. Nick Khan called him and smoothed him over. Nick said that. R-Truth has said that. Triple H has said that. I believe it. It was nice to see the backstage reactions after his return, though. The way everyone reacted to seeing Truth come back, the friendship with Road Dogg getting some sun, both of them being able to talk about their love for each other and show emotion like men. I thought that was really cool. Road Dogg, as we mentioned, he looked like an idiot in the writer's room, but this whole episode talking about Truth, you really felt a deep friendship connection between them, and you saw how much Truth meant to Doggy.
Yes. I'd forgotten that R-Truth and Road Dogg and K Quick back in the day teamed up. And so that was a fascinating dynamic of like Road Dogg's like, yeah, me and this guy, we were good friends coming up, and now I'm kind of in control of his career in terms of the writing. And that, I don't say maybe conflict of interest, but just like trying to be objective in the situation that he's in his role was an interesting dynamic to see him kind of try to figure that out. Triple H explaining how the negotiations go felt totally real to me, and it makes sense. And you would know more as someone who's been on that side of negotiations. I believed everything they said there. Yeah, I know there were some people when Truth came back, some people thought it was a work. I mean, we were like, you don't do it like
no.
This is what and it was what it was. I found that to be really interesting. And then at the end, when like again they don't tell people that R-Truth is coming back, I'm kind of surprised how often it feels like they don't make big decisions until day of the show. Like as much as we try to fantasy book out the next year or whatever, so often in this show, they're like, oh yeah, we didn't come to an agreement until the day before. And then the day of the show, they're like, all right, R-Truth's going to interfere in the main event. Like that seems like extremely volatile environment.
It is. That's also why I try to be fair when it comes to criticism of booking like that, because you don't know what happens suddenly. People get hurt. People get pulled away. There's something that happens with Cody in a later episode where it changes their creative plans for something unexpectedly. At least they claim it was unexpected. And a million things just happen in life. And with WWE, because there's so many moving pieces, all of a sudden, if one thing is out of place, everything else goes up in smoke. Bianca Belair clearly was a major centerpiece for the SmackDown Women's Creative in 2025. She got hurt at WrestleMania. They figured, we only need to push it off for a couple months because it's a finger. She'll get better. And then it never got better. So that screwed up everything. So that division, the booking has been terrible. We've been talking about it all year. But is it somewhat understandable? Or I should say, was it understandable for a couple of months? It was. The fact that it's still terrible all these months later is why it's problematic. But this show does provide some insight into these issues that you otherwise might not know. Again, that's the stuff that's intriguing wow, we had to change this. We just signed him right before this. Not long conversations about creative plans and so on and so forth. I'll also note that this episode was about Naomi because we just really talked about Truth. As part of the trailer for this season, Naomi basically said, I'm going to tell you what happened when I walked out of WWE. So she comes on screen here in this episode and she's like, I'm going to talk about what happened when I walked out of WWE. And WWE immediately shows images of her and Sasha Banks. And I'm like, oh, cool. They're going to do this. And then she literally starts this segment by saying, I'm not going to get into much detail here. And then she just generally says a lot of stuff that happened that day that we already know. WWE then points out, because they wanted them to have a voice, that it was a different head of creative and a different head of talent relations at the time. And they say Naomi and Sasha didn't want to be pitted against one another as champions, and how it was the wrong thing for them to walk out of the show. If you remember, the idea, yes, they were going to get pitted against each other in that match, but it was a multi-woman match. Partners have fought before. And the end result, the booking was for them, the tag team champions, to respectively be the number one contenders for both of the women's singles titles. Anyway, Naomi said she felt like she needed to stand up for herself, and that was it. This was the most disappointing part of season 2 of WWE Unreal. We are never going to hear this frickin' story until both of them completely retire. And even then, if Mercedes Moné does come back to WWE and signs a Legends deal and gets put in the Hall of Fame, it's possible we never hear this story.
Yeah, that was a little bit disappointing. Also, I was kind of surprised they would say different head of talent relations, because if I recall correctly, that was John Laurinaitis, right?
Right, yeah, he's gone.
Yeah, he's gone under very, controversial and scandalous
what they were saying is Vince McMahon and John Laurinaitis, the problematic parts of this company, they were the ones in charge then. It's not our fault. That's what they were trying to say.
Yeah, I was just kind of surprised they acknowledged that. But that part was disappointing. But to say Sasha Banks on the show, I was like, oh, interesting.
Yeah,
I always wonder sometimes when they will say the name or not. And sometimes they don't, sometimes they do. And when they do, I go, ooh, interesting.
It's interesting that they still say Sasha's name, but they won't say Edge and they won't say Daniel Bryan, and they ignore a lot of other people who have left, but they keep saying Sasha Banks.
Well, they will say Daniel Bryan, because I know when Cody fought Roman and Michael Cole during the entrance would list off all the people that Roman beat.
He said that?
He has said Daniel Bryan. Okay. Yeah. Okay. But that's the only time I can think of.
You know what? He may have said Daniel Bryan and Edge. He may have said, because he stacked and beat them both.
Oh, yeah.
You're right. He may have said that then, but I'm saying in general, they try to cut them out of things. Dean Ambrose is cut out of everything. Sasha Banks is not. She's regularly mentioned when appropriate, and it's pretty interesting. Also, Lillian Garcia crying over Naomi winning Money in the Bank was so sweet. It really got me when I saw her crying. That was
also
cool.
Naomi busting her nose and still having to go back out to do the cash in afterwards.
Yeah, and someone backstage, I forget who it was, telling her, don't clean it. Let the blood drip down and dry. It's going to look cooler. So smart. And it did. It looked cooler. Episode 3 was called The Vision. I did not expect to see Lucha Underground footage of Chelsea Green and Penta, which is an incredible match that you need to go out of your way to see. You can find it free online. Watch Chelsea Green and Penta from Lucha Underground. It is awesome, and it was so cool how she put him over in that moment too. This episode crystallized how SmackDown knew it had women's roster issues, particularly in the mid-card, back in May, as we said then. And here we are 9 months later, and they still haven't done shit about it. It does not make a shred of sense. They knew flipping the title back to Chelsea wouldn't work then. That's when Zelina had the title. And so they didn't. But then they put it on Julia, did nothing, flipped it back to Chelsea anyway, despite being in the exact same position they would have been in May. And now it's back on Julia, who's working in the tag team division because she doesn't have any challengers still. I almost lost my mind at this next part. On April 3rd, during the creative meeting planning the Raw after WrestleMania, they basically arrived at the Vision name. Paul Levesque is like, well, he's the visionary and this is his vision. And the guy's like, well, we don't need to name the faction right away. And that's true. They didn't have to name it on the Raw after WrestleMania. But why the hell did it take you 6 months to name the freaking faction? I was pulling my effing hair out watching this. Okay, moving away from the critical parts, Triple H telling Braun Breaker in gorilla position that he was going to spear the shit out of Roman Reigns the next night on Raw, and Breaker literally not believing him was awesome. That was my favorite moment through the first 3 episodes. Something else I loved throughout the whole series is in the background of every, let's say, 10th backstage segment, you can see Becky playing with Rue. She's just sitting on a couch, playing with her title, doing peekaboo or hide and go seek or whatever the case. Rollins will be talking to someone. Becky's in the corner playing with her. Now it's her daughter, so it's not weird or anything, but it's just so cute that it's like a constant thread throughout the entire series. I love that. And lastly, it was nice to see that our frustrations with the men's Money in the Bank finish were indeed not the original plan. I felt so justified watching that play out without the drama that was necessary. Rollins being angry, LA Knight getting a talking to, both of them were completely appropriate because it was a chance for Knight to be that close to the briefcase, and he blew it. Now they need to build him up for that spot again, which may be why he was languishing late in the year. It actually made me wonder if our LA Knight conversation about the Royal Rumble maybe had something to it. Perhaps they save it for Money in the Bank and they give him the briefcase, but that crystallized everything we said about that match, the finish, and why Knight wasn't a bigger deal when it was over. He was supposed to be, and they screwed it up.
Yeah, this episode had 2 different people where I wondered if part of it coming out of Unreal is to then get fans to rally behind them. One of them was LA Knight, like you said.
100%.
But the other was Chelsea Green, who was a huge part of this episode. And about her like being stuck and hitting a ceiling. And I think this is the episode where Michael P.S. Hayes was like, basically like Chelsea Green won't be the top of a division, but she's valuable. And I was like, that's like insulting.
Yeah, he said she's not a main eventer. She makes the main eventers.
Yeah. And I like they really hammered that home. And part of me was like, is that because they want the fans to get behind Chelsea to then get to the main event? Because it did me. It made the whole part of that made me empathize or sympathize with her and want more for Chelsea Green, which I've always said. I've always thought she's incredibly talented, and they do like she can do everything. That's why she gets a lot of TV time, and that's good. But it's so clear that they feel she has a ceiling, and it kind of feels like she is accepting that she has a ceiling because she is willing to do whatever is asked. She'll never say no.
She's always accepted that, though, just to be clear.
Yeah, no, I know. Right. But sometimes you kind of have to say no so you don't get stuck in that loop, the Dolph Ziggler loop, essentially, which he has said before. And so, like, when she's talking about her, 7 broken noses or something like that, she has been heavily featured in both seasons. And both times, she has been one of the most interesting people in the season. And I would love for people to rally behind and believe that Chelsea Green can do more than what she's doing now. But I think that also takes Chelsea Green believing that. And I'm not sure if that's there.
I don't know if it's an issue of her needing to believe that she's more. I think she has an understandable perspective on her career that a lot of fans don't, that not everyone can be a main eventer. Now, should Chelsea probably hold one of the women's world titles at some point? Yes, she should. But that doesn't mean she needs to hold them for 4 months or 6 months and have a real reign. She should probably be a Money in the Bank winner, transitional champion, holds it for a month, and then loses the title. And
remember, she got
comedy run.
A year and a half ago when she almost won that Money in the Bank.
Right.
And people wanted it.
Yeah, badly.
And she didn't get it. Then she got the title then at the first Saturday night's main event.
No, 100%. So, her being, though, the first ever Women's United States champion, I think we see that now when we thumb our noses at it. Like, oh, how big of a deal is that? But imagine if you're talking about the first Intercontinental champion for the men, or the first United States champion
Pat Patterson
for the men back in the day. That's historic. It legitimately is. So we're looking at it now, but there's no reason to believe either of those titles is going to go away. So when you look back 20 years from now, and it's a trivia question, who was the first ever United States champion? Chelsea Green. Oh, remember when she did that thing with the Secret Harvest and all that? Like, what she is doing now does matter. And I know you're not suggesting this, but others suggesting it's not good enough or that she shouldn't be satisfied. I disagree. If she is satisfied with her role and is accepting that I'm getting paid whatever she's getting paid, 7 figures most likely.
To build that big old house with Matt Cardona.
I get to build that house. My husband loves action figures. I don't have to worry about him, you know?
Real quick, wait, that was an interesting line she said. She said, I've been doing this for however many years, and this is the first time I'm really making money doing it.
Right. And this is my dream.
That was a great perspective, I think, for people. Oh, the wrestlers, they make a lot of money in WWE. Like, no, she actually like hasn't for a long time. She got cut several times, which they went through in season 1.
Right.
And all that. Like, I thought that was an interesting perspective, a way to see her perspective of where she is now, which is like, why rock the boat? Things are going as good as they ever have.
But it's not even about rocking the boat. It's like, you have to, you know, there's people in your job and my job who will be vice presidents and directors of editorial and senior writers and on-camera personalities. And then there's people who are going to be editors and writers and senior editors, let's say. And that's going to be their job. They're not going to necessarily go much higher than that. And it has nothing to do with them being good people or people liking them. In fact, you could argue that they are good people and people do like them. And that's why they're able to hold on to those jobs for such a long period of time. But there is generally a different skill set or a different need from the company, some type of headlining look or personality or presence or whatever the case, that takes someone from the mid card to the upper mid card and then eventually into the main event. Not everyone gets to be WWE champion. Not everyone gets to be world champion. Not everyone gets to be the top woman in the entire company. Chelsea is not going to be that. That doesn't mean she's not awesome. It doesn't mean that she can't have a long career and make a ton of money and be on television every single week, which is really what the goal should be, to be utilized regularly. If you asked R-Truth, hey, are you upset that you were never world champion in WWE? Well, he will probably say, well, I was the first black, world's heavyweight champion ever, so that's okay. But his answer is no. I've had a job for 25 years. I have the adulation of the fans and the support of the locker room. Everyone loves me. I couldn't ask for much more. And that's where Chelsea is. She's like, I'm able to build this house and I've made all this money. And soon, eventually, I'm going to have kids and I'm going to have to figure out, like, how do I continue my career? What do I do? She was excited about putting all the titles she had on a bookcase that doesn't even exist yet. She doesn't care necessarily that she doesn't have the world title. I think it's awesome that fans support her so much and support LA Knight and all these people. And I think you and I both do agree that both of them should be world champion, even if it's short term, just to do it, whatever. But not everyone can reach those mountaintops. And I think, I think people upset that Michael P.S. Hayes said that about her didn't juxtapose it with Chelsea saying, hey, I'm a diva. Like, I'm from an old era and I'm here for comedy and to work and to do fun things and to have a good time. It's not like she was saying, oh, I'm depressed because I'm never going to be champion. And then Hayes comes in. Yeah, she's never going to be champion. F her. That's not what happened.
No, but there was disappointment over losing the belt right away and them not knowing what to do with her. And I say that because
that was awesome.
But I wonder if putting that in the show is in part a way to try to kind of stir up some people rallying behind Chelsea Green to see what happens.
It may well be. It's very possible. With Knight, also to your point earlier, that might be exactly why they did it. Or it's not, and they just ignore the fan sentiment and move on.
Well, or it's TBD. Like, maybe they don't get the response and it doesn't happen.
Yeah. Did you have any thoughts on the part with Knight and Money in the Bank?
Basically just what you said. I was like, okay, that explains it. And like, man, it just frustrated me all over again.
You could see how frustrated he was, and you felt bad for him. You're like, oh man, he knows that. Like, not that he blew their trust, but he misunderstood perhaps that was a moment to make him, and he didn't take advantage of it.
Yeah.
And that was disappointing to see play out. And I saw people criticize that and say, oh, they're making LA Knight look bad. No, that's something that happened. Do you want this to be reality or not? Like, again, that goes back to, like, what do you want this show to be? That stuff with Knight, that stuff with Chelsea. Guess what we're talking about here at length on the show? We're talking about that. We're not talking about the conversation in the writer's room. It's a perfect example. It's a paradigm of what this show should be about. Episode 4, Performance Act. Triple H briefly addressed the deluge of extra events, saying they happened for business reasons and made creative challenging. Again, that is something we talked about on the show specifically. I got to tell you, I felt a lot better about the Jelly Roll match after this episode, and especially after episode 5. But this one too. We felt better about it when we watched SummerSlam live. But from the onset, the concept, seeing his dedication.
I didn't watch it live, but yes, you.
I'm saying after SummerSlam is what I'm saying.
Yeah.
And also the way Randy Orton reacted to him, I thought was cool. Like he was all in from the jump. He respected him.
I thought the opening of the show, I think it was the opening, where Paul Heyman explains the value of a work and how it's performance art.
Mm-hmm.
That's the whole, it's the line they used in the trailer where he's like, I don't like this show. And you can 100% see his perspective. And I think I mostly agree with it.
Absolutely.
And that's the tug, the push and pull of us when we're watching the show, which is like, this is good. Do I want to actually know this, though? I don't know. But I thought, I'm glad they addressed that through Heyman.
We also say all the time on this podcast, though, we want to be worked. And this whole concept of, and I'm going to talk about this in a little bit, that didn't work me. Everyone knew. But, so what are you trying to say? That you're smarter than everyone else? And, oh, wow, they didn't pull the wool over your eyes. You should want to get worked. Why else are you watching this? Like, sure, we analyze it and we get granular with it because we have opinions and we want to share them. But getting worked it's the basis of wrestling. If they can work me 4 times a year, guess what? I'm a happy camper. And it's not just working like pulling the wool over my eyes with someone's injury. Legitimately surprising me when something unexpected happens. Naomi cashing in Money in the Bank at Evolution. Never thought it would happen. Because they put me in one direction. They pushed me toward, oh, this is a SmackDown thing. She's going to cash it in on that title. She's going to feud with Jade. Why would she run away from that? Mm-hmm. And then she cashed it on the Raw title. Like, holy shit, that was incredible. And, you know, that's kind of part of these episodes as well. We'll come back to it in a second. I'm getting ahead of myself. I surprisingly don't have much else to say about the worked knee injury by Rollins, which took up the majority of this. I saw a stupid conversation online that said people claimed no one was worked by this. Bullshit. Tons of people were worked by it, especially in the moment, but even through SummerSlam. Just because some of us found out or surmised otherwise does not mean the common fan was unfazed. That is rewriting reality. It's also kind of disrespectful to Rollins considering how much he put into keeping kayfabe. Well, other than Rue telling her teacher, someone's got to talk to that kid about protecting the goddamn business. I thought Bex was a better mom than that, but no, I'm joking, obviously.
Shout out Miss Joy.
Shout out Miss Joy. Other than Rue, they protected it as well as they possibly could. Gunther walked up to Levesque, what was it, right before SummerSlam, like when they were preparing. Hey, I figured it out, but he didn't. That means he didn't know for a couple months, potentially. I mean, I don't know if that's true. It's very possible it wasn't. It seemed legitimate, like unless he's a great actor, Gunther, which I don't think he is. That seemed pretty interesting. And again, just because you as a dirt sheet writer or fans who follow the dirt sheets and one person reported that it wasn't true and so on and so forth, that doesn't mean that thousands of people around the world, maybe millions of people around the world, were legitimately worked by it. So to say no one was worked, it's bullshit and it's rewriting history.
Yeah, I was worked. You and I think disagreed on that.
The night of Saturday night's main event, we both thought it was legitimately possible that he was hurt, and probable, I would say, that he was hurt.
My biggest reason was because I didn't think you would do that work on NBC and give them basically a terrible main event and do it, or not main event. I don't think it's a main event,
but a match on the card,
Yeah, to put a match on the card on NBC and not deliver it. But they did. So credit to them for that. And we'll get into the cash-in and all that stuff. But I was worked. And I'm glad that I was.
Yeah.
And it was interesting to see, again, how many people knew or didn't know. When Triple H is like, you have to tell the medical team. But like, that's it. Mm-hmm. Him explaining why you have to tell the medical team made sense. Mm-hmm. Like, yes. But it sounded like they didn't tell the referee, which I actually don't think I agree with that. But it was interesting to see it play out. The referee should know everything, I feel like. I'm not in wrestling, but they're the one kind of controlling things out there. But I don't know.
I think it's because they wanted her genuine reaction. And then they were going to tell her on the headset as it was transpiring.
Yeah.
You know, I also,
that's true. They did. Oh, that's right. They did tell her as it was.
Yeah. I also thought it was pretty cool that we saw this year. Like, I'm okay with the behind the scenes of Levesque and Gorilla and the producers in Gorilla relating things to the referee and people around the ring. I thought that was cool throughout the entire episode. Like, tell Pat, keep selling. Cameras are still on him. Like, that to me was super interesting. Again, more so than the writer's room and stuff. Mm-hmm. This to me was really intriguing. The way they showed all of this and going back to what we were talking about. Yeah, on Saturday night when this happened, you were like almost positive it was. I was like, it probably is real. I think by the time Monday rolled around, I had poked some holes in it and I wasn't positive, and certainly predicted. I don't remember if I predicted the cash in exactly as it transpired, but I believe I said something along the lines of like, Punk's going to be hurt after this match, and wouldn't it be awesome if Rollins cashes in?
Something like that.
Because he's probably not hurt. And if they're telling the story, and then I think the argument that we had was, why did they need to do this if he has Money in the Bank anyway? Right.
Yes, we did that. I think we did it after the fact. That was my issue.
I thought it was before. I thought it was both, before and after the fact.
Maybe it was both.
But the point is it doesn't matter if we surmised otherwise. The point is the majority of the audience. The majority of the audience believed this was real. And that's because WWE did a good job with the work, performance art, whatever you want to call it. Bex fully clocked the social media reaction to her replacing Bayley at WrestleMania, knowing fans would be upset that Bayley lost her spot for no good reason. She even told Levesque point blank in his head, or in his ear, hey, I don't think this is a good idea. Now, it was late in the process that she said this, but anyone could have seen that coming, and they obviously ran with it anyway. It was really cool to see everyone backstage, including Rollins and Kevin Owens, watching the triple threat at Evolution and praising it up and down. Becky, Lyra, and Bayley, especially that sick-ass rollover backslide pinning combination, and how much it meant to Lyra on the back end to be involved in the match with two of her idols. That was awesome. Everything about the Io Sky part of this episode was made for me. Okay. They did a great job profiling her, starting with a 5-minute handstand. We were like, wait, she can do that? She shouldn't be able to do that, right? They showed her importance to WWE, how much Levesque reveres her, calling her his rock star. The moment they had after the Evolution match, Io literally jumping into his arms, so thankful to get the main event despite losing her title. It tells you everything you need to know about her. Again, I saw people picking this scene out and criticize him hugging her like that. Was it the most appropriate thing in the world? Okay, probably not. Wrestling is not your office job. These people are way closer to their coworkers than you are. And most importantly, Levesque's effing wife was in gorilla position. If it's okay with them, you don't need to concern Troll about him hugging his coworker. I promise you.
Yeah.
And lastly, when Naomi cashed in, I never noticed that Jessica Carr got emotional while raising her arm. That was really sweet, as was the reaction from seemingly every woman in the locker room to her victory. I think Bayley straight up cried. And one other thing on Naomi, it is really funny to me how whenever cameras were in her house with Jimmy Uso, I think they did it twice, they 100% reverted back to their Total Divas gimmicks. I mean, I know their relationship is probably like that in reality, like fun and, because they seem like those types of people. But they snapped right back into reality TV mode, almost like it was a scene from Total Divas dropped into a Netflix special. So that popped me huge.
Yeah. Yes, that was the Naomi stuff, explaining all the different caution tape like stuff she had gotten. But then also like explaining like she has like pepper spray and a taser on her. I was like, that's actually like serious and like notable and interesting. But then it's funny, Jimmy's like putting his action figure in there as well. That was really really cool. Something similar along this point, which it's like a little thing I just wrote down and noticed. When they hit the pyro, they tell everybody in Gorilla pyro and they all plug their ears. I was like, oh, that makes sense. It would be extremely loud back there. It was just kind of like a very just like human thing to see that. I was like, oh, that's interesting. It makes sense. Koski says before Evolution that Evolution basically exists because of Give Divas a Chance, when, as far as I recall, that was not the case.
No, there was a
Evolution
long gap.
happened. Yes. Evolution happened because they couldn't put the women on the first Saudi Arabia show, right?
Correct. Yes, and people were very upset about that.
Yeah, so another attempt to rewrite history
100%.
there. This was the episode where they showed Jelly Roll wanting to lose the weight and all that stuff, which was super interesting. Seeing the work he put in, buying or renting out 2 houses down in Orlando, one for him, one for his music crew. Dude worked hard. His rise in country music like coincides with his rise in WWE. Like he was, when he first showed up on WWE, he was like still kind of getting bigger. And now by the time you get around to SummerSlam, he's a gigantic star.
What's that?
And so
what's that term people use? Like is it media plant? What do they call those people? Like industry plant,
like
industry plant.
Yeah.
I have felt from the beginning that Jelly Roll has been forced upon us from the music industry.
Yeah, I'm not as familiar with the inner workings of it, so I couldn't tell you.
They plucked this guy out of total obscurity. I am not telling you he's not talented. He is more talented as a musician than I could do it for 10 years, like training to try to learn to sing or play good. I could never be as talented as him. He's talented. But he is, I don't want to be insulting. He's like marginally talented compared to some of the best that are in the industry. And it feels like he was forced into, public view and then shoved down everyone's throats because they had this guy who had a unique look and a unique name and was different from everything else that was happening in country adjacent music. And they just shoved him down everyone's throats. He went from someone I had never heard of ever to I could not watch something without Jelly Roll. It was like the Oscars, the Pro Bowl. Like, it didn't matter what it was. Jelly Roll. It was everywhere. And I know that they like turn up the promotion machine when an album comes out. This was over the course of like 2 whole years. And now WWE got infiltrated by him as well.
Someone being plucked out of obscurity and pushed to the top very quickly. You know what that sounds like? That sounds a lot like pro wrestling. If we're being honest, the history
not like
of pro
that
wrestling. I don't know.
Like you could say Penta showed up on WWE and got pushed to the moon, even though he has
the Giant won the WCW championship over Hulk Hogan, his first appearance in
Okay, you're gonna compare this to the Giant. I mean, okay, yeah. You mean
saying, like
you mean Paul White, right?
I mean Paul White.
Oh, okay, yes, yeah, fine. It's true. Yeah, that's true. But again,
but to your point, like
that's not pop
I kind of
culture,
felt the same. I felt the same though, where I'm like, I don't really listen to this guy's music. I don't really care about him, blah, blah, blah. But in this show and in this episode, he was incredibly a character you could empathize with. And I was like, kind of like the Randy Orton thing. And in the WWE, people were like, yeah, we thought we would do a short thing. But then this guy's like working really, really hard and putting something together because he really loves this. And suddenly we make it something more. And I was like, you know what? Like, I get that because I was not into the Orton, Drew, all this stuff. I was like, why are we putting Drew in the celebrity match? He should be doing bigger things.
We were really bothered by that.
But as it played out, it turned out to be a bigger thing that elevated everybody, which is exactly what they were going for. Even if it wasn't necessarily, it got bigger than they thought it would. And that's because of the work Jelly Roll put in. And credit to him for that. Yeah, and it was interesting to see the training things too, like what he did, the pads and how he took them. I don't know.
It was so impressive. And it was also really smart for him because he's like, look, I have a major weight problem. And he didn't have a weight problem. He was massive. I mean, he was like to the extremes, right?
He was he started in this episode. He's like starting at like 330, trying to get down to 300.
And I think he said he lost 180 pounds and his goal was 300, which means he was 480 possibly. Like that's insane if that's what the number was. But what he did, which was smart, is he said to WWE, he's like, hey, I want to do this. Could I possibly do this if I get in shape? And I'm sure they said, well, yeah, if you're in shape, sure you could do it. So he used that as a goal to reach. And then he worked for a year or however long to lose the weight necessary and train to the level that he could actually do it. And he acquitted himself extremely well at SummerSlam. I mean, it was shocking. Was he still helped and carried by the other three? Yes, obviously. But he did way better than anyone expected him to. And that kind of transitions us into episode 5, The Pop, where Jelly Roll at the beginning of the episode, he was basically begging Levesque to let him get beat in the match, which, as we said coming in, should have been the booking from the beginning, no question about it. A+ he gets from me for being so adamant about it. It made the match more realistic, and it made the show better. Going the other way with the result would have been an absolute shame. So credit to him for that. And it was really cool to see like Orton put him over, Triple H put him over, CM Punk put him over, and just, hey, like, we appreciate how hard you worked and that you actually did what you said you were going to do and that you exceeded our expectations. It was also really funny after his match where he's there almost like Levesque is his father and he's the child. He's like, did I do well? I really want to do this. No, sir. And Paul's like, respect. I really want to do this again, Paul. Yeah, respect. You did a great job. Like he was trying to get like confirmation that I can come back and wrestle again. And it was very, very kind of funny to see.
And to the earlier point, not presumably it looked like real, not deciding on who was going to win the match until like going into the show.
Yeah, I think when you have a match like that where it doesn't matter that much, you can make those decisions.
Bit.
But I don't know how much I believe that. I don't know. Maybe.
Like we said at the time, though, there was you could not let the faces win that.
You could not let McAfee beat Gunther, and you could not let Jelly roll, even pin Logan Paul. You couldn't let that happen. They made the right decision. The Rollins cash-in really was tremendous. I had forgotten that there was a thwarted cash-in-ish attempt prior to this, which made the ruse more sensible. I don't remember whether we mentioned that last summer, but Punk's reaction to it all, I said this earlier, being gung-ho from the first time he was told the plan all the way through how it was going to get executed, it showed both how much fun he's having in this WWE and perhaps how much of a changed dude he has been the last few years as well.
He said it's the kind of thing that made him fall in love with pro wrestling back in the day.
Yeah.
And that was really endearing. And I remember thinking at the time, like, man, CM Punk really did work all the way back to become a WWE World Champion here, and they just took it from him. That kind of sucks. And I'm like, does he actually feel sad about that in the moment? I don't know. And then you watch this, and it's like, no, he gets the big picture. He loves being part of the big thing, even on the losing side of it. To the point of, this is the guy who back in the day would complain about, not being in the main event or being the guy who lost and not getting the wins and certain things. And now he's on the other side of that. That was really interesting.
I'm also quite sure, again, they're showing us the reality they want us to see. I'm sure they cut off some of that conversation. I would guess that he probably said, hey, Punk, so we're going to have Rollins cash in, take it off of you. Now, and Rollins is obviously the main guy on Raw. He has the faction. He has the briefcase. It makes all the sense. And then Punk, what we're going to do, the plan is you'll beat Rollins at WrestleMania, take the title back. That'll be the big moment. That's when you'll start your run. Like, I'm sure that was communicated to him or something like that. And of course, it hasn't happened that way for all the reasons that we know. Bex completely breaking down about her father before SummerSlam. That was tough, as was Lyra, completely blaming herself for not being in the zone for their really disappointing match on that show. And yes, she did screw up multiple times, but man, she was bawling her eyes out to the point they were bloodshot red after this match. I felt so bad for her, but it also hopefully engendered sympathy and appreciation from fans who saw this. It was cool to hear Lynch put her over despite the messiness, and hopefully Valkyria watching Unreal back, she will feel better about the entire situation. Even cooler was John Cena putting her over and making her feel better moments before his massive main event. Yet he took time out of his schedule to go over to someone who's like not grieving, but like really upset at the way she performed. I remember saying this at SummerSlam. That match was disappointing. It did not live up to expectations and it was sloppy. And yet there were so many parts of it where you're like, holy shit, I can't believe they did that. And you could tell that if it had gone smoothly, it would have been an awesome match. It's just a lot of stuff got messed up.
And being told, hey, you can't do those spots because the other match is going to do it, which I think we criticized at the time, which is why we having multiple like no DQ matches basically.
The whole show was that. There was like 4 of them that night or something like that.
Yeah. And so then they're like, what if we do this? And they're like, no, you can't do it because someone else is doing it. Oh, like that's got to be so frustrating.
Of course.
As a wrestler. So that was a super interesting part of it to see when the conversation backstage about the zip tie, super interesting.
Yeah.
Like that's like, oh, like that's a real thing that we all saw. You can't ignore it. Very curious how that actually works. And for them to all immediately see that and say that was
the worst part of the match.
Oh yeah.
And that was Lyra's fault, and she should have just let it go. And she recognized it and admitted it live, which is important. But yeah.
And her saying like at the beginning, she's like, I could just tell I wasn't in the right mindset, and I was just like trying to push my way through it and kind of go. Like we've all been there 100%. In some form or another. Like I'm not on my game today. Let's just get through it, and then it goes terribly. Yeah, that was an incredibly relatable moment there.
Hell, I'll relate just before. I'm sorry to interrupt you. I'll relate it to this podcast. There's episodes you and I tape where we fly through it and we just knock it out of the park and we're great. There's others where I stop 4 or 5 times and I'm like, what the hell am I trying to say here? Like what am I doing? And why am I saying it that way? Oh yeah, let me actually get it. Now we have the ability to pause and then edit, and get you guys the finished smooth product that we try to offer you. They don't have that opportunity. When something goes wrong, they have to play through it. And that was Lyra's point, that she thought she knew how to do that and does know how to do that, but she completely failed in that match.
Yeah. And the connection wasn't made, but I just made it myself, comparing that to the LA Knight Money in the Bank thing, where it's like, everybody's like, oh, Lyra had a bad match on a big stage. It's fine. Everybody consoles her. You'll get over it. Because she is the future. She has time to kind of make it better. LA Knight is not the future. He only has this many moments to get it right or not get it right. And if he doesn't know if he'll get another one of those. And I find that contrast interesting. It wasn't acknowledged in the show, but I compared it to the LA Knight situation about who's kind of getting more leash and who's not, right or wrong or different, whatever. I just found that part an interesting comparison as well.
No question about it. So after this, it kind of transitioned into Cody Rhodes and John Cena, which was weird because they weren't covered over the remainder of the show, the prior 4.5 episodes. But it seems like the reason is because that might be what season 3 is completely about. So Cody said he felt like the finish of WrestleMania, the execution, was beneath what he knows they can do. Michael Hayes claimed the reason for the failure is that it didn't feel genuine, trying to force the fans to hate Cena. That is true from the standpoint of how the Las Vegas crowd reacted. They wanted to cheer Cena. But it's untrue that it was an execution issue. It was a booking failure to go with The Rock storyline without The Rock using Travis Scott in his stead. And you know this, man. Then we saw creative conversation about the ending of Cena's heel run. And the way they positioned it is that Cena was not supposed to turn face until after SummerSlam or maybe at SummerSlam, maybe saving Cody from a heel attack. But since Rhodes had to go away for Street Fighter, they had to do the turn beforehand. Even if that is 100% true, which who knows whether they knew about Street Fighter or didn't, although it did seem to come out of nowhere, to be fair. I feel like they could have done the same attack save concept at the end of SummerSlam. It was messier at WrestleMania, but the run into SummerSlam still could have been smoother. You have Cody win the title, and rather than John Cena get serenaded at the end, Cena bows to Cody and lets him get his moment. Brock Lesnar returns. He starts charging to the ring, and John Cena, still a heel technically at this moment, sees Lesnar coming, and he passes him. Maybe they give each other a look, and he says, F that. He goes, gets Cody's back, beats up Brock, stands tall. If you had done that, you have the babyface turn for John Cena, a moment with Cena and Cody in the main event, and more legitimate reason, I would say, for Cena and Lesnar at WrestlePalooza. Instead, they didn't do that. You know what exactly they did. They had Cody leave the ring, Lesnar attack Cena, and then they built nothing toward WrestlePalooza.
Yes, and I was again not around live at the time for that, but ending the heel turn via I thought it would make good television, which is what they said on TV, was very strange. The whole thing was weird.
It wasn't good.
I would have preferred.
Yeah, we were relieved that it was over, but it wasn't good. Yeah.
Yeah. So, yeah, it was interesting to see how that worked. I think we disagreed on it at the time, but it was what it was.
And then lastly, just it would have been nice to hear from Cena about his heel run and this match. It's understandable he did not want to be involved given how much he does protect the business. Cody relating much of what John told him. It got the job done to a degree. And I do presume the Cena retirement is going to be the focus of season 3, and that airs this summer. So we'll have to see if that is true. But if they go Cena retirement season 3, and then the road to WrestleMania 42 as season 4 beginning of next year, that's going to make a lot of sense.
It was cool. Cody realized, he's like, John told me during the match, be yourself. Don't lean into heelish type stuff just because the crowd is behind Cena. And then they cut to that moment in the ring where they caught it, where Cena's like, hey, be you, be you, be you. I was like, oh, that's really cool.
Yeah.
That was a super interesting insight there. Kind of as you're working it on the fly. Oh, one other thing. We did have Paul Heyman holding up his phone multiple times on this show.
Mm-hmm.
And he has the old iPhone again. He doesn't have the newest one or the Pro one. I don't know what happened there. Remember, we talked about this a couple years ago on this show.
Well, yes, but this was taped, this was taped like 6 months ago-ish, right?
No, but I'm saying like a year or two ago is when he got up to a better phone. And I remember talking about it at the time. But he's back to having an older version of the iPhone.
I would bet you he has multiple phones.
I'm sure he does.
Yeah.
But in terms of which one he holds on TV and this and that, I'm like, oh, interesting.
Yeah, we haven't really seen as much like Heyman phone call type stuff these days. You know what I mean? And that's true.
Yeah.
Well, anyway, that wraps up season 2 of WWE Unreal, our review of all 5 episodes. Of course, we will do this again every single time a season is out. But I think it's fair to say, if I want to wrap this up for both of us, huge improvement from season 1. Just need to concentrate more on the wrestlers and the creative around their individual matches and moments in and around the arena and their personal lives at home. Stay out of the writer's room.
I thought this at the time of the Rollins work and when it got revealed. Do you think they did it for this show?
No, I don't.
I'm still torn on that.
No.
Because on one hand, it is the first 2-night SummerSlam. You're trying to do as many big moments as you can. But after season 1 came out, because it was at the time we learned it was a work, is when season 1 came out. And I said at the time, I think they did the Seth thing just for season 2. And as we expected, it was a big part of season 2.
But it's like, did they do Naomi's cash-in for season 2? Did they do this for that? Oh, did they?
No, but
did they purposefully have LA Knight screw up the Money in the Bank finish for season 2 of Unreal? No,
but those are normal things that happen in wrestling. This Rollins thing was something they hadn't done before.
No, I just think that WWE books major things all the time because they like to create moments. And naturally, when you have a reality show, they're going to focus on those major things. I don't believe this was done for Unreal. Do I think it's possible that as part of the conceptualization of it, they said, hey, we should do this. It'd be great. Blah, blah, blah. Fans would love it. And someone may have said, you know what? It would also be great for Unreal. Maybe as an aside, I don't think they did it for the reality show. Their product and what they're doing at SummerSlam is way more important than the reality show they're doing for Netflix.
It is, but obviously I'm not saying like we're ignoring what it means for on screen. I'm saying like, here's something that'd be great. And because it's a work, we can reveal the work on the show. Like they've done a really good job, I would say, under Triple H of using every medium available for their on-screen storytelling, such as Cody Rhodes and Kevin Owens attack happening just via people filming it themselves.
Yeah, but that's live in the moment. This is after the fact, months later.
No, but they planned that. What
I'm saying is this is months later. The reveal of this being a work was SummerSlam. So they're not revealing that here. They're just
I'm just saying planning stories that involve multiple mediums that are not just what happens on Raw or SmackDown.
Yeah, I think they believed
they've expanded that.
I think they believed like, oh, by the way, this would be good content also. But I think it's secondary to them thinking it's a good angle for TV, is what I'm saying.
We're in a point now where I'm always going to wonder, and I think I said this after the Seth reveal, which was like, how much of what we're seeing is for the purpose of the story being told versus because it will be a good story on another platform.
Yeah, I mean, possibly. I don't think WWE is going to be able to...
I'm not saying it's fair. I'm just saying I'm thinking that now in my head when something is booked.
No, makes sense. I don't think WWE is going to pull that trigger again anytime soon. You can't do that annually.
No.
You know what I mean? So
they may come up with, you come up with something different.
Well, that's the key, right? You have to come up with something different. That's their responsibility, and it's why them repeating certain things. I mentioned this in the news portion of the show that you missed. The Elimination Chamber, again, being 2 number 1 contendership matches. It's why when you are doing trite, repetitive stuff like that, it handcuffs you when you should be using those opportunities to get creative. And,
I missed earlier in the show. Did they announce that that's what those are?
On Get Up, Paul Levesque said they're both going to be number 1 contendership matches. Yeah.
Oh, I hate that.
Yeah, I did a rant earlier that you missed. It's okay.
Yeah, I'm sure you said it. My reaction is I hate it because it devalues the Royal Rumble. I didn't like that John Cena could lose the main event of the last spot of the Royal Rumble and then still find another way to get into the main event.
And not just main event, main event of night 2. It superseded the Royal Rumble, in fact.
But that also goes, that was announced on Get Up. Brock in the Rumble was announced on McAfee.
Yep.
That's, again, we're like so many different channels where I'm not even catching everything that's happening.
Yeah.
But that's WWE's media content strategy, which makes a lot of sense in today's world.
They fully blitz ahead of their big four, and they just go all out for it. And it makes sense, but, it's a lot to cover. It's a lot of work for us. And speaking of a lot of work for us, Silver King has a lot more to cover because we're not only talking NXT and AEW over the remainder of this show, we're talking ratings. I actually forgot. I have very quick notes from AAA as well. But before we get to all of that, I do need to tell you that here at Getting Over, whether it is Raw, SmackDown, NXT, or premium live events like the Royal Rumble airing on Netflix, I am all in these days. With NordVPN, it's easy to set up a drastically better viewing experience each night. You get the same high-quality streams, except they become commercial-free shows. All you have to do is sign up at nordvpn.com/gettingover, open the app, quick connect to another country like the United Kingdom, open Netflix, and watch the program. That's going to be crucial for the Royal Rumble, especially for those of you who have Comcast or YouTube TV. NordVPN also allows you to get around online censorship and surveillance and protect your private data while web browsing. Plus, one account, it can be used on 10 different devices. So get the best discount. Go to nordvpn.com/gettingover. Our link will give you 4 extra free months off the 2-year plan. And there's no risk. Nord has a 30-day money-back guarantee. It's the best case scenario. So improve your WWE viewing, save some freaking money, browse safer online, and get the best discount for the best VPN at nordvpn.com/gettingover. We love having NordVPN as the official sponsor here of the Getting Over Wrestling podcast. As mentioned, I actually have some notes from AAA that I forgot to mention at the beginning of the show. So let's go ahead and get to them right now. They are doing an hour-long show every single week, just so everyone is aware. It's airing on Fox Latin America in Mexico and elsewhere. For English-speaking audiences, it's airing on YouTube with satellite commentary from Corey Graves, JBL, and at least for the first couple of episodes, Rey Mysterio. I have 3 super fast notes. First, Penta announced that the Lucha Brothers would return in AAA, and that Rey de Reyes, their King of the Ring, was changing formats. It would now consist of 5 total fatal 4-way matches. He said that he will crown the winner. That person will get a number 1 contendership. Apollo Crews is competing. On the format change, I'm not going to sit here and lie to you and say that I was married to the old way because I had never seen one in full. I've seen the finals, but I've never seen a whole tournament. However, doing 5 fatal 4-way matches is very Paul Levesque in terms of the way he structures mini tournaments. So Penta announcing that just made me laugh. Laredo Kid retained his cruiserweight title over Octagon Jr. and Mini Vikingo. Literally, Vikingo's like 17 or 18-year-old brother. He took a nasty tope suicida doomsday device and an even gnarlier move off the ropes. He also hit a tornillo tope con hero that was insane. The dude is so small. There were multiple times during his match where I felt like, am I watching child abuse? Because something doesn't seem right here. I also believe they have Mr. Iguana in a love triangle with Lola Vice, which is just wild when you think about it. And lastly, Motor City Machine Guns wrestled on the show. As I've said, it's an hour of wrestling. It flies by, free on YouTube and in English. So that's AAA. Let's talk NXT. Joe Hendry versus Jackson Drake was scheduled, but during Hendry's entrance, Vanity Project was shown backstage, Drake holding a chair over Hendry's body. We later learned that Hendry got taken to the hospital as a result of the attack. Just as this happened, Tony D'Angelo arrived, surrounded by 4 bodyguards. Then production cut to Ricky Saints, who was on commentary, having called the entire first 2 minutes of the show to that point. Not sure I can recall that ever happening so casually in wrestling before. Saints then promised he would address everyone after all the qualifiers were decided. Unique start, even if not that exciting. It definitely feels like NXT is putting the entire men's division on Saints' back. Appropriately so, I would say. Later backstage, Ava admitted she could not prove that Project attacked Hendry. She thwarted their attempts at flirting with her, deciding that Drake was in the ladder match, and if Hendry was cleared, he would be as well. So let's just get this straight. We went from 5 qualifiers plus Saints getting free entry, which made logical sense, to 4 qualifiers plus 3 guys getting free entry. That is piss poor creative. And they did it so the Evolve champion didn't lose to Hendry? Really? And we're getting now a 6-man ladder match, or we were going to get, a 6-man ladder match, which is generally far more convoluted than going 4 or 5, which is the perfect number. And instead of 6, it's going to 7. There's going to be 7 people in the WWE Performance Center, the tiny little area, doing a ladder match for the NXT Championship. That is just absurd.
No, don't like that.
Ethan Page tore down Miles Bourne backstage, saying he needs to realize that being ruthless and winning by any means necessary is the only way to survive, considering he's already wasted so many opportunities, unlike his opponent and the Dark State stable. Saints then interrupted, but Bourne cut him off, sick of hearing him run his mouth, ready to drop his ass. Page joked that Saints being obnoxious was the one way to actually get personality out of Bourne, which I thought was pretty funny. The interactions between these three over the last couple of weeks, it's been among some of the best work from the men's division, outside of all the guys who just got called up to the main roster. So we had Bourne against Dion Lennox in a qualifier. Bourne lost his position in the ring almost as soon as the match began. Rookie mistake that looked terrible. Page came out of nowhere to annoy and distract in the early going. Lennox twice raked Bourne's eyes with the official missing it. So Miles seemed to respond in kind, nearly taking the referee's head off while doing so. Ethan slid him a title, suggesting that he use it. Miles grabbed it, ready to swing, except the referee caught him, stole the strap away, and Lennox hit some kind of side body slam for the win. Page screamed at Bourne after the bell, so he stole the North American title away and laid him out with it. This was just not good. Nothing about it worked. Bourne and Lennox should have been way better working together given all their time in NXT. The finish was an eye roll that Miles would consider listening to a pure heel who clearly does not have his best interests at heart. And Dion's finisher is a body slam to the side. Really, this men's division is in dire need of talent and energy. This did not bring anything to the table. The only positive is that Lennox is qualifying and Bourne is feuding with Page. Those are both the right moves. Saints was in the middle of speaking with Ava, calling Keanu Carver a problem, asking her to ensure nothing fishy happened in the ladder match next week. D'Angelo entered, asking why she bailed him out of jail, to which Ava said he's a wild card, but NXT needs him. D'Angelo said he needed to get her attention somehow, which is why he attacked everyone, and he would share his intentions next week. Ava warned him not to interfere in the ladder match, but he just walked out. Wait a minute. You needed to attack people for over a month to get the attention of a general manager who you worked with regularly? How about, I don't know, picking up the phone or walking into her office? That's the explanation after all of this time? Seriously? I know D'Angelo stated he would make his intentions known next week. What is he going to say other than that he's focused on winning the NXT title? There's no other goal he could have on his board. And he's certainly not about to start a new faction or something. Sounding like a normal person without the overdone Italian accent, that was a positive. But man, I don't know. This whole refreshed gimmick, it just feels dead on arrival. He's stone-faced, expressionless. I hope I'm wrong and it all comes together considering next week's a big show. NXT is clearly skipping Vengeance Day this year. It's crazy on its own, by the way. I presume WWE just did not sign a deal for the NXT PLEs, which is legitimately shocking to me considering NXT itself is the best deal in professional wrestling in terms of a media rights contract for the CW. But yeah, I don't understand anything that's going on here. So we had Carver against Andre Chase. Keanu was positioned as a pure fighter here, which might have worked better if he wasn't doing suplexes and shit. Carver actually sold better than he worked. He really lumbered around out there. Chase speared Carver over the announce table to show aggression, but as he stood on the table celebrating, Carver box jumped onto it and hit a pickup slam. That was the best part of the entire match. Then he threw Chase into the ring for a power slam with a bit of a twist, except he barely gained any momentum, and the twist added absolutely nothing. Carver beat the shit out of Chase after the bell, slamming his head into an exposed turnbuckle, stomping him on the steel steps. He got to chew on a blood capsule Chase did after the match. Carver grabbed the mic, saying a school teacher wasn't about to stop him. The look and presentation is spot on. The selling was solid. The offense is nowhere near ready for prime time, but that's okay. This is developmental, even if he's already been in the Performance Center for a couple of years. Just cannot be someone who gets the rocket strapped to him just yet. He's not ready. Needs a lot more work when it comes to the in-ring just to be believable. And not just believable, but safe and able to work regularly. The finisher is simply unacceptable for a guy with his size and strength. To do something and immediately be less impressive than Braun Strowman, despite being a decade plus younger, is really disappointing. The finisher needs to be completely rethought. I don't know how people could train him for TV and then give him the thumbs up saying that move, yes, that's your finisher, that is ready. Between trick shot for Trick Williams, this stupid ass finisher, Lennox's side body slam, you have three big, strong, I don't know if Carver is a former football player, but Trick and Lennox, I believe both were. And these are the finishers you're giving them. A pump knee, a body slam, and a running Power Slam that's not running. I don't understand what the hell they're doing. The Performance Center has churned out great wrestlers and great finishers. Whoever's working with these big men, get them out of there, call The Undertaker in. Like, we got to fix this shit. It's ridiculous. There was a ladder match get together in the ring to end NXT. Shiloh Hill wouldn't shut up about his excitement to hurt people. Lennox said Dark State has been working too hard for this and no one's jumping him in line. Sean Legacy said he's got nothing to lose. This is the biggest opportunity of his life. Drake said he would do the same shit, but he's too smart for it to do all that. Saints then climbed the ladder on the entrance ramp, looking down on them, saying they are the future champions, but he is the rose coming out of the concrete, ready to claim the title now. The other 5 brawled, Legacy and Drake impressed. It was Carver who stood tall in the ring. Saints weakly knocked him down with a ladder, then went to grab the title, only for Hendry to show up injured, limping to the ring for standing ovation to seemingly end the episode on top, except after Hendry did his emote, Carver landed his bad finisher again, and he instinctively went to cover him, even though it was not a match, and he just had to stand tall. Segment was rather paint by numbers when it comes to the promos. No one actually said much of anything. The back and forth at the end was a little bit unexpected, and ultimately it was fine to end the show. But look, the ladder match participants are going to be Saints, Drake, and Hendry as automatic qualifiers, Lennox and Carver plus Hill and Legacy. A 7-man ladder match. It's insanity to me, especially when 4 of the guys literally just got called up in the last couple of weeks. And we're talking about the NXT title, not the North American title. Like, I understand you want to platform these new people, but it's the NXT title. Ethan Page is not in this match. Tony D'Angelo is not in this match. Like, why not? It doesn't really make a lot of sense. Are we doing all of this with Saints coming out on top anyway? Process of elimination, there's no way they can give it to Hill, Carver, Legacy, or Drake. That would be ridiculous. So that leaves Saints, Hendry, and Lennox. I could see them trying something with Lennox, similar to what they did with JC Jane and Fatal Influence last year, and I kind of hope that's the direction they go. But if not, it looks to be Saints. Hendry winning the main title without a storyline to get him to that point doesn't really work. The only reason to do that is if you want him taking the strap into Stand and Deliver to put someone else over, and I don't really see that happening. Blake Monroe entered the women's locker room making fun of the Jada Parker chants. Nikita Lyons got her back, saying Blake was a queen who should have chants of her own, and she even got the locker room doing one. Monroe was immediately drawn to Lyons, saying she not only had her back, but she was clearly willing to fight Parker on her behalf. I still, to this day, have absolutely no idea what anyone in the WWE Performance Center sees in Nikita. She performs as if she's existing in the 80s, high on Quaaludes. Everything is overdone from an acting standpoint. Much of what she says makes you shake your head. And considering the strength of the women's division, it's insane to me that she's still around. Now, from limited stuff I saw involving her on Evolve, she's improved. And she's got better gear as well. But going from a 0 to a 4 still leaves you at a 4. And we're talking on a scale out of 10, just to be clear. So we had Parker and Lyons. I'm pretty sure they allowed Nikita to do her own entrance theme. So the presentation was better. Jada, in her first action back, got her ass kicked by someone who's been working on Evolve. Nikita landed a Pearl River plunge, which looked okay, but that should only be used as a finishing move. Parker hit a spinebuster plus teardrop plus hypnotic, but she debuted a new finisher, a deja vu powerbomb, for the win. Now, hip attacks for most women should be nothing more than signatures. They tried to make it Asuka's finisher for 1 week and it failed. From Jada, though, frankly, with her hips, I didn't necessarily hate it as a finisher. That said, the new bomb is far better. And this is not a shitty finisher like we were just talking about with the men. The execution of it is interesting too. And I love sit-down moves into covers. But there is one problem. It's basically Rhea Ripley's Riptide, just without the pump handle. So she gets an A- for the move. The match was whatever. Lyons got way too much. Parker should have beat the brakes off of her. Monroe appeared via Zoom from her home, I suppose, giving Parker a sarcastic clap, saying it was a nice performance, but not a glamorous one. Blake repeated that no one takes her spotlight and gets away with it, so she planned to see her soon. Jada then spoke into the camera, telling Blake she knows exactly where to find her. I was a tad confused. I thought the Blake-Nikita segment was happening live earlier, but I probably missed a graphic that said it was just from earlier in the day and, probably taped last week. The part was fine other than NXT not removing the echo from her audio. It's a problem in my house too. I know it comes through a little bit on this show, but I reduced the reverb and it usually gets a little bit better. I don't know why they didn't doctor her audio at all. It was very strange. So tag team championship was on the line. Dark State defending against Out the Mud. This got rushed to first on the show. So there was a funny bit where Dark State entered, still spraying themselves down with water as wrestlers would normally backstage in gorilla position. OTM got an updated entrance in Titantron. It was rather basic, but it was better than what they were doing. Sugars got deadlifted and tossed out of the ring into Cutler James. He was so far and away the MVP of this match, it was ridiculous. Best wrestler, best performer, best seller, everything. He was a bit too far away from the ropes for the finish. He was supposed to use them as leverage for a roll-up, but he did the best he could to make it work. This came as the rest of the thinnest tag team division I can remember brawled down the ramp. Once they all got cleared away, the calling attacked the champions for heel-on-heel violence, ending with an assisted impaler DDT. This division needs so much help, man. It is dead as a doornail. Rather than do any deeper analysis on this, let me spend time sharing with you something Sugars posted on social media this week, which as an individual segment is better than anything Dark State has ever done on television. And the context here is that he and Osiris Griffin are eating from a restaurant, Wings, Things, and Barbecue somewhere in Orlando. And by the way, if you ever see a place like this, Wings and Things, and the words end in Z's, stop there, get some wings, get some things. I promise you it's going to be good food, but it's 90 seconds. And again, this on social media while they're, chomping down is better than anything Dark State has ever done actually on television.
Hey, fool, why my mother call after TV, bro?
Oh, what's up, moms?
Yeah, I thought so, but last Tuesday she called talking about something. I heard y'all fighting OTM next week. Mm-hmm. Is they nice? Is they nice, bruh? Talking about, I know it's TV. I know everybody ain't really like that, but them boys look real live dangerous. I don't want you getting in the ring with them because they look real live dangerous. What she mean by that?
I don't know, she tripping.
She tripping, ain't she? Yeah, with all due respect to my mother, I ain't never been so hot at a bitch my whole life, bruh. Dangerous? Lucian Price? Yeah, just cause you straight out Nigeria don't mean I won't beat you like a djembe, boy.
Hey, bro, wait. We got Bronco.
Uh-huh.
Ain't that the things that they ride at the county fair after the funnel cake? Hey, but for real. Hey, tell mom we ain't got nothing to worry about fighting Timu Crime Time, all right? Hey, you know what we did? We beat the Hardys, the greatest of all time.
Uh-huh.
So by the transitive property, hey, we the GOATs. We the GOATs. So what more possibly could we do?
My man said transitive property,
Yeah, right.
bro. Hey, mommy, OTM, just cause y'all out the mud, I'm happy y'all made it out the mud, bro. Cause when them lights get to flashing, you gonna be 6 feet underground, bro. Cause when Dark State strike,
ain't nobody safe.
I mean, we got Saquon Sugars calling his mom a bitch and transitive property in the same 90-second, little promo thing from these guys. Why was that not on television? You want me to like Dark State? You do more of that because that shit was sick. Okay, that's what we need on NXT. That is how you get that show rolling a little bit. And Saquon Sugars, straight up, he should be in the main event of this company. He should be challenging for the NXT championship. He should be NXT champion before 2026 is out. Saying it right now. The Elegance brand got a promo segment about Zaruka getting a Knockouts tag team title shot against them. They tried to wedge drive, suggesting the faces are not actually faces, and they're injured on top of it, given Zarya's shoulder. Zarya was then seen calling Solruka, seemingly frustrated that she was not in the building. Thea Hale, with a refreshed look, by the way, tried to get Zarya's back. She wasn't having it, considering Hale stumbled into an opportunity that she was never given. It got heated between them, leading to a match. I enjoyed this back and forth between them. Elegance brand, man, they are grading. That is a TNA act if there has ever been one. So we had Zarya against Hale. Zarya tore Soul's nameplate off her locker before walking to the ring. Izzy Dame joined commentary. Zarya scouted Hale's springboard senton, catching her cold for a backdrop. Thea responded with a Kimura lock, but quickly got overpowered and flipped backwards. Zarya followed with a spear, but Hale countered her finisher with a DDT. As this happened, Tatum Paxley splashed Izzy from off the barricade, chasing her through the ring backstage. Zarya, of course, was distracted by this. That created an opening for Hale to roll her up tight for the upset victory. Zarya was floored, but did not attack her like a heel or anything. She reluctantly smacked Thea's hand afterward. Fatal Influence interrupted, seemingly for no real reason. When Hale put her hand on Zarya's shoulder, basically saying, hey, I'm going to help you out against them, Zarya took exception, hit her with Zone of Destruction, a move that Vic Joseph is for some reason reluctant to call. Definitely feels like this is the start of a legitimate Zarya heel turn. She now appears to be completely fed up with Soul, even as she might try to convince herself otherwise. Soul is off doing her own thing, while they should be preparing for a tag team title match next week. That's where the split should come. If not, then the following week. Thea getting the upset was actually smart because it tried to show her victory over Blake was not entirely a fluke. Tatum being involved, it was a little confusing because, as we discussed last week, Izzy is doing a triple threat for her title, but Paxley is not one of the participants, despite beating her the same night she won the strap. All in all, this was one of the better and more worthwhile segments of the night. Plus, Fallon Henley.
Gonna look good, but she's got me saying, hey now!
And you know what that means? The Hey Now Championship is officially up for grabs. Jordynne Grace from SmackDown last Friday, Fallon Henley from NXT on Tuesday night. Look, Fallon, incredible, right? The presentation was awesome. As we've said before, she looks, acts, and wrestles the part. Should have been on the main roster long ago, but there was something so deeply Hey Now about Jordynne on Friday. It's going to be tough to conquer her. Certainly not in her first defense. Jordynne Grace retains the Hey Now Championship. Tavian Heights put over Ilio LaFleur and Eli Knight backstage, giving them credit for working hard last week, even in defeat. Lexis King with Stax and Ariana Grace came through talking shit, with King specifically telling Heights he's wasted opportunities that he's been given that they deserve. These three heels, they have been operating as a group in TNA wrestling, I believe, even if we haven't really seen them on the AMC shows yet, nor really in NXT. I need to do a little bit more like research, and they probably need to expand their numbers to make it work, but it was a nice confrontation segment. That was my thought coming out of this. Later backstage, Uriah Connors complained to Chase U about Mr. Chase's methods not working and how they almost certainly needed to go in another direction to find tag team success. Chase walked away to prepare for a match that we discussed earlier, so King stepped in, saying Connors' father would be proud of him because King knows his father would be proud of him. Of course, Brian Pillman. This was in reference to Fit Finlay, Connors' father, a relationship that has not been used on TV to this point. There's also rumors that David Finlay may be headed to WWE, coming from New Japan Pro Wrestling, breaking up Chase U and putting the Finlays together, possibly in a faction with King. That would at least be fresh. The other cool part about this is that King's throne was waiting to the side of the segment. So when he was done talking, he took one step into it and made a pretty badass move, just like sliding out of the frame into the entranceway. Visual was kick-ass. So we had Heights against King. This was basically a speed rematch without the stupid time limit. Stax and Ariana quickly entered. Heights sold an injured shoulder, of which King took advantage with the coronation for the win. This may have been as short of a speed match, if we're being honest. Nothing impressed here other than King's newfound aggressive character. That was an improvement. King said after the bell, this is just the beginning. Heights has somehow regressed since returning from Pro Wrestling Noah. Might need to send him back to Japan on a longer excursion or something. There's way too much personality and athletic potential for him to be working like this. You know what? Heights and Bourne, neither of them are progressing at their expected pace. And considering the tag team needs of NXT and how it seemed like they were going to be the next tag team champions that fans could get behind, they would be way better off reforming as a unit. That is what should happen. In fact, they should probably win the tag team titles at Stand and Deliver. Whether they get back together, I cannot tell you. Whether that is the plan, I highly doubt it. But that's what I would do if Silver King had the book. Charlie Dempsey backstage told Ren QCC he was actually impressed with their efforts last week. Other than them taking the L, Kendall Gray was distracted and not really paying attention, still focused on fighting JC Jane for the women's championship. That's when King, Stax, and Ariana came through, pulling aside and telling Dempsey he's one of them. I was wondering to myself earlier in the show whether Dempsey might be part of this, considering the guy has done absolutely nothing of substance in a year. This makes a lot of sense. He could be the pit bull for their faction. It's quite clear there's going to be some type of legacy stable formed on the back end of this, and that is interesting. No JC Jane, no Sol Ruka on the show, no Blake Monroe live tells me all three of them will likely be in the Royal Rumble. I figured the same about Hendry, but he showed up at the end of the program, so maybe he's not going to make it. Overall, not a great NXT episode. This is almost certainly a low point for the brand over the last couple of years. The men's singles division is a disaster. The men's tag team division is a wasteland. The women's division is still thriving, though JC doesn't have a number one contender, probably due to Vengeance Day getting scrapped and them not needing one right away. I called this out 6 months ago. WWE thrust way too much into NXT. NXT on its own was thriving. Then all of a sudden, TNA, AAA, Evolve, LFG got shoved in there. The speed bullshit. And now the show is being asked to stand on its own again, yet it cannot, because all the time that would have been spent developing storylines and angles and new talent to replace call-ups, all of that time was wasted. And then they call up their top 3 male stars, one of them unnecessarily, Javon Evans, at the exact same time, and they leave nothing. Meanwhile, you have women like Fallon there waiting for her break when she should have been up on the main roster a year ago. NXT is still an easy show to watch. It's still entertaining, but it's not what it had been at many points in 2025. And that was some weeks the best wrestling show on TV. Lots of work to do. They really should seek to sign some fresh men's stars or move a couple people down from the main roster. Shit. Put the Creed brothers back in NXT and put Julius in the main event. Make him the NXT champion. Let Nathan Frazier come down and do something. Let both teams work NXT and the main roster simultaneously. Just do something, because NXT, the way it is currently comprised, it is not going to work. They got to figure this out, and they got to figure it out soon. Moving over to AEW, 5 of 13 matches this week were storyline relevant, less than 40%. Even if I was a bit flexible, you're still hovering around 50% at best. Not ideal. On Dynamite, MJF was seconds into a promo when he was interrupted by Brody King. MJF reiterated that King needs to beat someone that matters. Then he criticized him for following Malachi Black, Buddy Matthews, and Bandito in succession, tearing down each of them and calling him a follower. He put King over as strong and dominant, but said he's never before met a liberal man who looks more like a Nazi. And while that was admittedly a funny line, even uttering that word on a wrestling television show to get heat or a laugh, it's pretty freaking absurd. MJF suggested King follow him, but Brody pointed out those guys are just his friends, which MJF would not know about. It was a perfect opportunity for him to mention Adam Cole, Wardlow, any of these people, but he didn't do it, and that made this an entirely one-sided promo battle. Womp womp. King agreed that he does not have the credibility through his record to challenge MJF. He said Tony Khan agreed and decided he should get an eliminator match where he will then earn his opportunity against the champion.
To beat the champion, to be able to beat the champion. That doesn't make any sense.
Remember when WWE got criticized for doing this shit all the time under Vince McMahon? Let me be clear, rightly criticized for it. This week in AEW, there were 2 eliminator matches and then a third announced all inside of 4 hours. That note aside, I actually felt this was a smart way to make MJF King plausible, considering no, Brody has absolutely no reason to challenge for the title otherwise. It would have been more interesting for me if he actually went through talent and won matches and got built into a legitimate upper mid-carder, but alas. Solid segment overall, despite my aforementioned issues. Brody on the mic, his voice does not match his look, and that always is funny when he starts speaking. On Collision, Hangman Page beat Katsuyori Shibata to open the show. Solid match with relevancy. On Collision, Andrade El Idolo beat Magnus in 11 minutes. 11 minutes. An unsigned CMLL wrestler. Dumb. Andrade wore a shirt to start the match, which I've never seen before. He got cheered for removing it after a few minutes. And there was a planted fan who asked him to take a selfie with her. He took advantage of that by fake entering his number into her phone. I think he hit 5 numbers on the photo app. He didn't even change apps or anything. Then during the break, it seemed like fans were chanting for him to take off his pants, and he obliged, having logo tights underneath. This definitely seems like it was completely planned and planted, but the dude looked great. Later backstage, Andrade said he's back to win the AEW title, saying Swerve Strickland specifically is the name he said is in his way. That obviously came completely out of nowhere. On Dynamite, Kenny Omega beat Rocky Romero in 4 minutes to open the show. This was billed as a, quote, massive match twice. It had no storyline build and ended quickly. Yes, Omega is half feuding with the Don Callis family still, but he's supposed to be building his resume for the AEW title. Instead, he worked with and squashed someone who's a member of a jobber part of the faction, because the whole faction's not jobbers, but he's the bottom, third or quarter of this faction, who's lesser than the guy he already beat in Josh Alexander. That's the wrong direction to go. He should be beating someone even better than Alexander and then saying, hey, I'm beating these talented people. I deserve a title opportunity. It was called a high stakes win afterward, as Tony Schiavone put Omega over for being in shape. Such an eye roll to say that on TV. Are you suggesting this guy has been out of shape during his prior returns? We pointed that out last week. It's true. That's not something you should be saying about your talent. Omega was then declared a top 4 contender for the title, along with Hangman, Swerve, and Andrade, the latter of whom, Andrade, had done nothing since returning. It was then explained that the top 2 contenders would get a number 1 contendership for a title match at Evolution, and that Omega would fight the winner of Swerve Andrade. What about Hangman? If you're determining 2 top contenders, shouldn't all 4 of those names be fighting in 2 singles matches? This was convoluted as hell, and neither Omega nor Andrade deserve to be in the conversation at this specific moment based on who they've defeated. Omega beat Alexander and Romero, and Andrade beat Magnus, a guy from CMLL. How do you compare that to what Hangman and Swerve have accomplished? Omega responded by saying, well, this is where the best wrestle.
Are you fucking kidding me?
And then he promised to win the title. Hangman then entered saying he'd be the next champion. Swerve interrupted, saying he's not been pinned since returning. He's the most dangerous man in wrestling, and he will go through anyone necessary to get the title. Swerve and Omega got heated before Callis interrupted because he must be involved in every segment this company puts on TV. Callis basically just yelled. I think he lost a tooth in his mouth or something while doing so. Maybe it was gum. And then he got chased by Omega. There's no question that these four guys are huge names, and them being involved in a number one contendership mini tournament, that's great because you're going to get awesome matches. But as I said, the whole concept behind this is convoluted and frustrating. Why are Swerve and Andrade fighting for the chance at Omega? Is Hangman getting a bye all the way until that number one contendership? If so, say as much. And also, why are Omega and Andrade in this light when you have people on this brand, Jon Moxley, Kazuchika Okada, Konosuke Takeshita, who have accomplished far more and should be way higher up in a number one contendership picture? That to me does not make any sense. On Dynamite, Andrade beat Swerve in 15 minutes. Certainly a surprise booking considering the former's return to the company and the latter's momentum. Did not give this relevancy credit considering how it was randomly booked, but it doesn't change the fact that this match was an absolute banger. Swerve did a Death Valley driver on the apron. Andrade took a crotch shot on a barricade while avoiding a pile driver. Swerve countered a running Meteora with house call for a false finish. Excellent spot. Andrade answered with a Poison Rana off the ropes and a Meteora for a false finish. Then he hit his old hammerlock DDT for another. More counters followed by another house call, but Andrade grabbed the referee to prevent JML driver, low-blowed Swerve, and then hit the message. Easily the match of the week in AEW, an awesome main event for Dynamite, 4.25 stars A. The close of Dynamite was Omega telling MJF he was one win away from facing him at Revolution. Again, that doesn't make sense because he has the number one contendership match. Andrade then threatened to slap MJF, but said he's focused on the title. Hangman then got in MJF's face, didn't let him enter his vehicle for 2 seconds, and then just let him go into his car. Solid end to the show. Perhaps I missed something in the explanation of this number one contender situation. This segment made me believe I did, but I fail to understand why Hangman is being ignored here and Kenny is talking about being one win away. Is it a triple threat where Page already has his spot? Is Page waiting for that number one contendership match? If so, then Omega would be 2 wins away. He'd need to beat Andrade and Hangman. I either missed something or they did not explain it well. I do like the names involved and generally what they are doing here, but something is missing. It could be me, but I do think it's AEW. On Collision, the CMLL World Championship was on the line. Claudio Castagnoli retained his title over Roderick Strong in the main event. Easily the match of the night, B plus grade. I could not recall what Strong did to deserve the match. The reason I struggled to that end is because he won a number one contendership in CMLL, but he had also defeated Claudio in the Continental Classic. They did explain some of that before the bell. That was positive. So I gave it deserved relevance credit, even if it wasn't really promoted until the show itself. On Collision, Proto Ishida beat Austin Gunn and Billy Gunn in 10 minutes. This was nonsensical. 2 of your top main event guys going 10 minutes with a 60-year-old. The match happening at all made zero storyline sense. Billy returning out of nowhere after dropping from the Acclaimed rebuild. Jerry Lynn, I believe, is also gone from that. I don't even think those guys are on television regularly. And the match itself was terrible. Like, what the hell was this? It was explained that Billy was replacing Ace Austin, who had travel issues. But they could have picked anyone or perhaps done a one-on-one instead, something more logical. Takeshita reluctantly shook Callis' hand after the bell amid a continued falling out. Kazuchika Okada entered with a sarcastic clap and a thumbs up. At this point, I hope they hold this thing out until All In. I'm not sure if it's possible, but if you didn't run it, around a Wrestle Kingdom time or beginning of the year, end of the year, I should say, World's End for AEW, then you better be running this match at All In. That's all I can say. I'm not sure if it's possible to wait that long, but I hope they do. Coming out of this match was some conversation I saw online about Fletcher being a far better wrestler than Billy, which, okay. Like, in terms of ability to do stuff in the ring, impressive stuff, flips and shit, athleticism, sure. Billy was a massive star who not only cut promos and told stories, but wrestled as a big guy, someone who was getting praise for being able to go as well as he did, like at the beginning of his AEW career 4 or 5 years ago. And now you're going to turn around and shit on him for no reason whatsoever. He must be going back to WWE or something if suddenly people are talking about him like that. Okada backstage at Dynamite told Fletcher he was focused on winning, assuming they would fight in the finals of the Continental Classic. When he took the screwdriver, he did not mean to hurt him. So Okada apologized, Fletcher accepted, and they shook hands. Callis later told Takeshita to make amends with Okada the same way before putting Fletcher back in the TNT title picture. Takeshita was furious about being asked to make amends with Okada, obviously. Again, I saw an argument online 2 weeks ago that AEW elevates talent. Besides that statement only being partially true, heavily dependent on the talent, here you have Fletcher, who was going blow for blow with Will Ospreay, and I think Hangman Page as well. And since that has ended, and he was in the main event picture, he has not only been stuck with the TNT title for a period of time, after he lost it, he's now still stuck in the TNT title picture all these months later. He's already had like 7 matches with Mark Briscoe. You're telling me he's getting elevated? We'll come back to him later. On Collision, Davis and Doyle beat Alec Price and Jordan Oliver in 4 minutes. No reason for the match. I'm okay with squashes. They should come before people become number one contenders, not after. AEW always does it in the reverse direction. It is asinine. There was also a brief back and forth with FTR after this. On Dynamite, Jon Moxley beat Ace Austin in an eliminator match. Why did this happen? Especially when Austin was feuding with the Callis family, with whom Mox is feuding. I wish I could tell you. Takeshita confronted Mox after the bell, considering he beat him in the Continental Classic. After he left, Davis and Doyle attacked and knocked Mox out with a single blow. Mox and Takeshita fighting, going for that title, does make sense. On Dynamite Tag Team Championships, FTR retained over Davis and Doyle, the latter of whom tore his pectoral during the match, ending their tag team as soon as it started, weeks after he signed with AEW. There were some nice Hoss moments in the match. It ended with Mox hitting Davis in the face with his title, aiding FTR's victory. Davis and Doyle did attack him earlier, yes. But this is a guy who was basically supposed to be leading a group toward maybe a tweener side, helping 2 pure heels win against 2 other heels for a prior attack that did not even make sense. How people ignore this, I have no idea. On Dynamite, the Young Bucks got a video package saying that power corrupted them, so they are going back to their roots, tassel, super kick party, and all. Do people actually want that in 2026? At least they're trying to do something with the tag team division, building it back up. So I give AEW credit for that, but this version of the Bucks, I mean, I know some fans love it, and they were super popular with it. But yeah, in 2026, I don't see it being anything special. On Collision, the TBS title was on the line. Willow Nightingale retained over Julia Hart. Nothing wrong with the booking here, which was, somewhat refreshing for a change. Larger issue is this should not have happened at all. It should not have been her first title defense. Julia has not improved despite all of her time in AEW. This was super rough. On Collision, Chris Statlander beat Isla Dawn in an eliminator match that lasted 3 minutes. Absurd by every metric. Isla getting an eliminator match at all. An eliminator match going 3 minutes. The match itself happening for no reason. Like, come on. Thekla sarcastically clapped on the big screen after the bell, then called her a dumb bitch, spit on her shirt, and flicked her off. 4 spit takes in 3 episodes in 1 division. Stat and her face trio cut a promo afterward, saying Stat would beat Thekla and they would put the titles on the line Saturday just to take care of the entire Triangle of Madness. Reminder that Willow just defended her title against Julia. So that means 3 title matches in 3 shows involving the same groups, all of which the baby faces are clearly going to win from the jump. On Dynamite, women's title was on the line. Stat retained over Thekla. Real nice title defense for Chris. Strong match to pay off the feud, B+ range. They had great chemistry considering their size differential. Thekla should be in the conversation for the TBS title coming out of this. After a series of counters, Stat hit a gut-wrench powerbomb and Wednesday Night Fever to keep the strap. Second best match of the show. And you know what? It might have been the second best match of the week in AEW. On Dynamite, TNT Championship, Mark Briscoe successfully retained over El Clone, who never should have challenged for the title in the first place. Briscoe actually won with a roll-up over a guy who is barely on TV. That is absolutely absurd. There was an attempted cool spot here where Clone was meant to do a handstand to prevent Jay Driller. The problem is he ate the move. So it looked like he no-sold a pile driver. Still a B-level match. After the bell, Briscoe said he wanted to defend his title on Saturday, so he was starting an open challenge as long as it did not involve any Callis family members.
Thank you!
When he finished, the lights went out, and suddenly, Tommaso Ciampa made his debut in AEW. The Blackheart graphics package on the big screen, the lighting presentation, the entrance music, and the pyro was absolute perfection. He looked awesome. It ended with a face-to-face between them and Ciampa kissing him on the cheek. Not surprising that Ciampa wound up in AEW, but damn cool the way they did this. Considering the presentation and reaction, he should really get strapped up immediately on Saturday. I would not think twice about it. Briscoe can take the loss and be totally unaffected due to his babyface personality. You can even have them rematch and have Briscoe win the title back. In terms of Ciampa being in AEW, what I said about Bryan Danielson applies to him just the same. I hope he's smart and careful. As far as AEW deciding to sign him, it's intriguing because, if we're being frank, he's a repetitive talent to what they already have up and down the roster. I'm not sure how exactly he fits in besides this one feud. And really, it's kind of a shame because he probably could have been the top heel in TNA if he had gone over there. Beyond that, it's interesting that the most social traffic from the whole episode was this guy debuting. Going further, ratings ticked up a bit when Samoa Joe was champion and went back down when Hangman Page was champion. Andrade is suddenly the flavor of the month since returning. Do AEW fans just wish this company was black and gold NXT? Don't forget the way they responded to Adam Cole and the way they treat Kyle O'Reilly. Is it really not so much about AEW being AEW? And is it more about AEW being not WWE? Like NXT was not WWE back in the day? I've suggested this before. It's tough to argue otherwise when you actually look at the numbers and the reactions, like things like this received on Wednesday. Ciampa is also just the latest talent signed to AEW, which is expected to add at least 2 or 3 more names in the coming weeks. They've already signed 25 new talents inside of 12 months. I might actually be missing a name or two. That is insanity. And it's just impractical. That's not to say all the signings are bad or unnecessary. Far from it. Speedball Mike Bailey and Kevin Knight, they've made a great team. Megan Bayne was a no-brainer, but she has not been utilized well at all. Thekla was a solid pickup who is showing to be better and better each week. Andrade back is similarly a no-brainer. That's 5 of the 25 people they signed, though, 6 if you include Ciampa. And I'm convinced now more than ever that AEW is doing what WWE was lambasted for doing in the 2010s, hoarding talent. Specifically these days, hoarding talent so TNA will not get it and improve its product. WWE, they've been getting criticized for taking some TNA names. Jordan Grace, Joe Hendry. Seemingly Leon Slater sooner than later, right? AEW has signed like 6 or 7 TNA people, and more might be coming. And that's not to mention free agents it scooped up so TNA could not bolster its roster. WWE was rightly criticized for hoarding talent previously. They tried to snuff out competition. It's ironic that AEW is now acting the exact same way. The indies have been decimated. TNA was raided. And these people, just like a decade ago in WWE, they aren't being utilized. AEW has nearly 200 wrestlers signed for one main brand plus ROH. That is pure insanity. What they need is depth in certain key divisions, not 10 versions of the same dude. So that I guess when 2 toys get broken, 2 others can work in their place. What happens when the injured folks get healthy? Now, I'm happy for Ciampa. I'm glad he's going to be utilized seemingly as an upper mid-card heel who can put on some work rate matches. Still surprising to me that Paul Levesque could not figure out how to make it work in a similar role on the main roster when we saw him thrive under Triple H and NXT. How that didn't happen, I will never understand. Maybe they can speak to it one day. But I'm happy he's in AEW. I expect him to put on some great matches. How he will be utilized and fit into that company long term, I'm going to be very curious to see. On Dynamite, Orange Cassidy was asked about still feuding with the Death Riders. Yeah, why the hell is that still happening? He specifically went after Wheeler Yuta, who was obviously right there to confront him as his appearance was being insulted. So Marina Shafir came in and grabbed Cassidy's hair, only for Toni Storm to get his back and say she has the clap. So Shafir grabbed her hair, talked about giving her more milk, from her breast, and then Toni said shit. This is so over for me. I don't understand how people are still liking this. I don't understand how it's getting praised either.
No, don't like that.
I don't get it. I'm sorry. I don't get it.
On Collision, there was a random taped segment involving Alex Windsor and Jamie Hayter, who were sitting opposite one another in chairs, agreeing that they should team up and win some gold. It was like 30 seconds long. It consisted of a Windsor short soliloquy and Hayter saying, okay, let's team. I love the idea of them as a team. Their styles work incredibly well together. It's a shot in the arm for the women's tag team division, which has dissipated after the titles were decided. And it gets both of them back involved on TV. However, it does speak to the horrendous booking Hayter has suffered through and how Windsor was just kind of signed for one main reason that we all know. My expectation is Windsor and Hayter get built up. They win the titles at All In. It would make a lot of sense. They're British, but we'll see if that happens. On Collision, there was a random segment where Ricochet played golf with the Callis family, who were wearing all black jeans and combat boots, and somehow an interviewer was there. It was a funny idea, nonsensical execution that came across pretty damn stupid. Anyway, later backstage, Jungle Jack was playing with a knife, trying to look like a badass, saying he wanted to take the national title, not just because he wants gold, but because Luchasaurus got injured. Unoffensive. Ricochet later led a demand promo about having their match in Las Vegas and how he needed all the luck he could get, Jack that is, because he's a Jack and it's tough to compete with a king. Then on Dynamite, Demand beat up Jack, hung him out like a cross, like Jesus on the cross, and put him through a table. The Ricochet promo was one of his best conceptually. The rest of this was forgettable. And lastly, on Collision, the Rascals had the munchies in, I suppose, their new clubhouse, not understanding why Crew has a problem with them. Yeah, I don't get it either. Then they did rock, paper, scissors with Myron losing every single time. It was nice to see some actual personality on the show. The segment was just okay. And now we've seen them, 3 times, and they haven't done anything yet. Once they get in the ring against Crew, I'm sure it'll be somewhat exciting, but man, I just feel like their ceiling is a lot lower than it should be. They're talented. I don't know how AEW is going to use them. We'll find out. So that was AEW this week. Ups and downs, strikes and gutters. It's pretty much how it always is. Let's wrap this show, as I mentioned earlier, with a quick discussion about ratings. We have not touched this subject for a while because, well, there hasn't really been that much newsworthiness to them. NXT has largely done higher numbers than AEW, both in total viewers and occasionally demo on a weekly basis. Repeating that weekly on the show is unnecessary. However, there have been some interesting developments of late that are worth sharing for NXT, AEW, and even TNA because it has now run 2 shows on AMC. That's actually the main reason we're doing this. NXT has been incredibly consistent. It's been between 647,000 and 602,000 with a demo between 0.1 and 0.07 since December. That includes over the holidays. It was regularly hitting 700,000 with demos clearly above 0.1 before and during the first month of football season. But with the roster decimated, asking it to find those numbers in this offseason might be difficult unless they bring some talent down. We've never really discussed Collision ratings, so to get that show out of the way, nothing has changed. The numbers are in the 200s. The demos are below 0.05. It's bad. Cancellation territory because it's like tanking like Rampage was previously, except this is a more expensive 2-hour show. Sometimes it airs live, rarely, but sometimes. Now, Warner Brothers Discovery does seem to use it as shoulder programming, so perhaps there's a little bit more value in it. And if Tony Khan is flexible with when it airs, that could work. We've also talked about them possibly airing it on Thursday. And if we're being honest, if they want to snuff out TNA, that's exactly what you do. Go head to head. Who cares about Thursday Night Football? I don't know that they're going to do it, but they definitely could move it to Thursday. We'll see. Dynamite is the crazy one. It has only hit over 550,000 viewers one time since September 24th. It's been at 525 or below for 13 of the last 14 weeks. And what astounds me is that no rating was ever released for Dynamite on Christmas Eve, despite it now being a full month later and ratings for every other show that aired that night being known, almost like the numbers being suppressed. All the wrestling journalists out there who dive into these numbers haven't said peep about it, nor have they been digging trying to find them. There was a while when we were wondering what it would take for AEW to hit 1 million viewers consistently for Dynamite. In 2025, it was still competing with NXT Weekly. And then all of a sudden, those first 2 shows in October hit, and the ratings have been struggling ever since. January has rebounded from the holiday episodes, but I'm not sure there's a path to AEW ever hitting 700,000 again, let alone 1 million, unless it takes a major talent from WWE or has some serious sudden upswing, like an NWO angle or something that catches lightning in a bottle. And that is so difficult to accomplish. Regarding TNA on AMC, the week 1 rating was 173,000 viewers and a 0.04 demo. Week 2 was 171,000 viewers and a 0.03 demo. Shockingly consistent from episode 1 to episode 2, especially considering the first show was terrible and the second episode was a lot better. With a little effort, some signings, and some buzz, it might actually be able to compete with Collision numbers. Still a long way to go until they get there. They need another 100,000. But if they hit a couple things right, if AJ Styles does go there and run a program, they might actually hit like the 300s for a couple weeks. So we'll have to keep tabs on TNA on AMC. And as I said earlier in the show, we will cover TNA here in bunches, probably ahead of each of their pay-per-views. It's probably the best way for us to do it, unless something significant happens on any of their shows. But it airs on Thursdays. We tape this show earlier Thursdays, and we just can't wait even longer to talk about NXT. We're already waiting for AEW Dynamite just to talk NXT. All right, folks, that wraps up this edition of the Getting Over Wrestling podcast. As mentioned earlier, we will be back Saturday with your 2026 WWE Royal Rumble Instant Analysis. Don't forget, there is already a Royal Rumble Ultimate Preview episode waiting for you in the podcast feed. Make sure you listen to that. On the way out, allow the Silver King to remind you that this show
It's all about the fire.
So head over to Apple Podcasts and Spotify. Leave a 5-star rating on Apple. Take a little extra time. Leave a 5-star written review. If you do, we will read it live right here on the show. Don't forget to follow us on social media at Getting Overcast on Twitter and Blue Sky. You get episode drops, news, analysis, highlights. You can send in questions and comments for the show, and you can vote in pre and post show polls around the Royal Rumble. So make sure to follow us there and subscribe on YouTube, where you can listen to our shows. And of course, you can watch full-length video interviews as well. Lastly, please remember,
I happen to love the number 5.
and I hope you do as well. $5 a month, $50 for the entire year. You can become an official Getting Overhead. Just visit buymeacoffee.com/gettingover. Sign up. You'll get bonus audio, the fastest 5 minutes in professional wrestling, instant reactions to every major show, and exclusive news analysis posts every week. Again, that is buymeacoffee.com/gettingover. Thank you all so much for listening to this edition of the Getting Over Wrestling podcast. A 3rd episode this week, 6th episode in the last 2 weeks, coming to your ear holes on Saturday. Make sure you subscribe if you have not already. For vintage Chris Vanini earlier, this is the Silver King, Adam Silverstein, signing off and leaving you with just 3 final words. Bye for now.